You're about to hear 3 hours of things you never needed to know. Details that don't matter. Answers to questions no one asked, and yet, you might find yourself listening longer than you planned to. Let's begin. If you've ever paused to look closely at a clock in a magazine or on a billboard, you might have noticed something quiet but peculiar. Almost every clock shows the same time, set carefully at 10 minutes past 10. It's so subtle that most people don't even think about it. Long ago, when clocks were still rare treasures, their makers took great pride in their creations. Clocks weren't just useful tools, they were beautiful pieces of art, built with delicate gears, polished metal, and careful craftsmanship. Each one was special, quietly ticking, as if keeping secrets of their own. When people first began selling clocks in advertisements, they realized something important. A clock's face wasn't just for telling time, it was also a kind of gentle smile. With the hour hand at 10 and the minute hand just past 2, clocks appeared friendly, almost welcoming, like a face lighting up. Still, some say this placement originally meant something else, something less friendly. A few believed it was chosen to frame the clockmaker's name neatly beneath the 12, where it could easily be read. This simple reason makes sense, but even now it's not the only explanation. Many years ago, when watches became more common, advertisers tried many different times. Some set their clocks to 8:20, others to 4:40, but quietly, almost without notice, 10 minutes past 10 became the clear favorite, as though it was always meant to be. You might notice too that the time of 10 minutes past 10 feels balanced. The hands are placed evenly, creating a shape like the letter V. It's gentle on the eyes, easy to look at. Something about its symmetry feels right, peaceful even, though we rarely stop to think about why. It's quiet, but it's there, the way our eyes naturally settle in the empty space formed by the two hands. That space often holds the clockmaker's logo or name, framed neatly, like a gentle introduction. Everything fits together, softly guiding our gaze. And this gentle trick doesn't just work with clocks. Watches follow the same quiet rule. Even the most luxurious brands, displaying delicate craftsmanship and detailed design, set their hands to 10 minutes past 10. Each one silently agreeing on this unspoken tradition. Sometimes, though rarely, a clock or watch might show a slightly different time. A few makers choose 10 minutes to 2, creating a mirrored balance, but somehow it feels just a bit off. The feeling is subtle, almost too gentle to notice, but something isn't quite the same. Still, clocks in movies and TV rarely follow this rule. Their hands move freely, marking times important only to their stories. It's as though they live in a different world, unconcerned with the gentle agreement found in quiet shop windows or glossy magazine pages. But back in advertising, the gentle smiling clock persists, even now when digital displays blink and glow from our wrists and screens. Traditional clock faces remain timeless, still quietly smiling at 10 minutes past 10, unchanged through years and changing styles. Quietly, this tradition continues, not because it has to, but because it feels right. Nobody enforces the rule, and nobody questions it either. It simply is, quietly existing in a space between habit and harmony, a silent understanding shared by clockmakers around the world. There is comfort in the familiar, even in something as simple as the position of clock hands. It's a gentle reminder that some choices persist because they are quietly pleasing, a subtle sense of order amidst the chaos of changing trends and new designs. Even now, this small detail holds a gentle poetic kind of mystery. It is so common, so quietly present, that we hardly ever wonder about it. But once you notice it, you might begin seeing it everywhere, a quiet secret shared openly in public view. Occasionally, a curious child or thoughtful adult might ask why, but the answer is soft and simple, not meant to excite or intrigue too deeply. It's merely there, quietly waiting, a small nod from history, a gentle wave from the past that still echoes today. Next time you glance at a watch in a shop window or a clock on a page, notice how quietly comforting it is, this timeless arrangement. Its gentle precision invites a brief pause, a small moment of peace in a busy world, softly saying everything is all right, at least here, at least now. In the stillness of clocks set to 10 past 10, there's a sense that time has stopped just for us, allowing a quiet moment to breathe, to wonder gently, and then slowly, effortlessly, drift away. If you've ever put on a pair of jeans, you might have noticed a small, quiet pocket sitting above the usual one. It's tiny and almost hidden, gently stitched into place. Most people never use it, and many never wonder why it's even there at all. Jeans first appeared long ago, made for workers who needed strong clothes to wear each day. The fabric, known as denim, was tough enough to handle heavy work. Jeans were built to last, strong and practical, carefully sewn with strength and purpose. Back when jeans were new, pocket watches were common. Workers often carried these delicate watches wherever they went. They needed a safe place to keep them, somewhere close, protected yet easy to reach. So jean makers added a small pocket just the right size. This pocket wasn't fancy or special, just a simple addition to keep the watch safe. It held the timepiece close to the body, safe from scratches and easy to access. It quietly did its job, unnoticed, and became a standard part of every pair of jeans. Over time, people stopped carrying pocket watches. Wristwatches became popular, making the tiny jean pocket seem less useful. It stayed quietly sewn into each new pair, no longer needed, yet somehow comforting in its familiar presence. Even today, this little pocket persists. Few people put anything inside it, yet no one seems to mind that it's there. It's almost invisible, blending gently into the jeans, quietly fulfilling a purpose long forgotten by most who wear them. Still, occasionally someone finds a new use for this tiny space. Some people tuck coins inside, others fold bills neatly. A few might hide a small key or a precious trinket, gently placed inside, safely kept until it's needed again. Sometimes, people wonder if the pocket was meant for other things, perhaps for matches or tiny tools, maybe for tickets or buttons needing repair. Quietly, the pocket holds whatever small things need holding, adaptable, gentle, and patient. Designers still include this pocket, even on modern styles. High-fashion jeans, rugged work pants, casual denim, all quietly feature this same tiny detail. It doesn't demand attention, yet it's always there, a quiet companion in daily life. On rare occasions, the tiny pocket changes slightly. Maybe it becomes a bit wider, sometimes narrower. But mostly, it remains the same size and shape, gently stitched, holding its silent mystery and simple history within each pair. Even the rivets around this small pocket have their story. Originally, rivets were added to strengthen jeans, making sure pockets wouldn't tear easily. The tiny pocket received these small metal reinforcements too, quiet symbols of thoughtful craftsmanship. Children's jeans have the pocket as well, even though children rarely carry pocket watches. It's as if the designers quietly decided that everyone, no matter their age, should share this gentle piece of history, stitched softly into their clothes. This pocket quietly persists, unnoticed by most, but comforting to some. It's as if the jeans themselves remember their history, holding on to a quiet memory of their past. This silent memory travels wherever the jeans go, gently reminding us of days long gone. Sometimes, fashion changes quickly, leaving behind old styles and details. But the tiny pocket stays the same, unchanged by trends, unaffected by time. Quietly, it continues to exist, holding on to its simple purpose, forgotten but never lost. When jeans wear out, the tiny pocket remains intact longest, carefully protected by its placement. It's almost as if the jeans themselves cherish this small piece, unwilling to let go, quietly keeping it safe until the very end. People rarely question its presence, accepting it quietly, never demanding an explanation. It's become part of what jeans are, a gentle, silent feature stitched into denim history. It doesn't need to justify itself, it simply exists, peaceful and calm. And as we continue wearing jeans, generations after pocket watches have faded from daily life, the tiny pocket remains. It's comforting, gentle and quiet, a small reminder of a past we carry softly with us, stitched into the fabric of everyday life. Even now, as the night grows quiet and we drift softly towards sleep, the tiny pocket in our jeans holds its gentle secret, patiently waiting, quietly prepared for whatever small treasures tomorrow might bring. If you've ever quietly walked across the floor of a casino, you might have noticed something unusual. The carpets beneath your feet swirl with loud patterns and bright, clashing colors. These designs are rarely pleasing, often confusing to the eyes, gently but persistently drawing attention downward. Long before casinos became popular, carpets were simple and calming, carefully chosen to complement a room. But as casinos appeared, their owners began to notice something. The floor could be more than just something to walk on. It could quietly influence people without them ever realizing it. So casino owners started experimenting. They chose carpets with intricate, puzzling patterns. The designs had no clear beginning or end, quietly looping in endless swirls. It became difficult to trace these shapes with your eyes, creating a soft confusion, keeping people gently rooted in place. These carpets weren't made ugly by accident. Each color and curve was carefully picked. Bold reds, deep blues and clashing yellows mixed together in patterns, too busy to fully comprehend. The carpets whispered softly, "Stay a little longer, look a little closer, maybe just one more game." When designers first introduced these carpets, some casino guests felt quietly unsettled. The patterns made spaces seem more alive, yet oddly restless. People found themselves wandering slowly from game to game, gently guided by the carpet's quiet chaos beneath their feet. Still, the carpets served a subtle, quiet purpose. They were intended to gently keep visitors awake, alert, but never too comfortable. The endless loops and sharp contrasts made resting the eyes difficult. Without being harsh or loud, the carpets silently encouraged continued play. Over the years, these carpets became a quiet, accepted tradition. New casinos embraced even more chaotic designs. Old casinos replaced their simple carpets with these lively patterns. Each carpet became a silent signature, a soft statement of purpose hidden in plain sight. Even now, carpet makers for casinos pay careful attention. They know exactly which colors softly encourage guests to linger. They weave patterns that never repeat clearly, making each step forward quietly intriguing, gently pulling visitors deeper into the room. Sometimes these carpets even include hidden, whimsical elements. Small symbols or abstract shapes gently emerge within the patterns, quietly suggesting luck or fortune. Guests rarely notice consciously, but subconsciously, these tiny shapes quietly influence their mood. Few other places use carpets like this. Hotels prefer calm, peaceful patterns. Restaurants choose soft, muted tones, but casinos alone continue with these quietly noisy designs, finding them perfectly suited to their gentle, persuasive purposes. Designers never brag openly about their work. They quietly accept the strange beauty found in purposeful ugliness. They understand their carpets softly do their job without drawing open attention, quietly influencing guests without words or obvious signs. Even the way carpets are laid is careful. They spread endlessly across casino floors, from walls to gaming tables, gently flowing without interruptions. This continuous design softly removes any sense of boundaries, making each area quietly connected, seamlessly guiding guests forward. Carpet installation becomes a quiet, thoughtful task. Workers carefully align each section, ensuring patterns match up just enough to continue the quiet confusion. The goal is always subtle, gentle influence, never harsh or obvious guidance. People sometimes share quiet jokes about these carpets. They wonder aloud why anyone would choose such strange designs. Yet quietly, casinos know these carpets work, gently holding guests' attention, softly encouraging them to stay just a little longer. Even in movies and shows about casinos, carpets like these quietly appear. They form a familiar background, an accepted part of the setting. People hardly notice them, yet their quiet, persistent influence softly continues, gently shaping our understanding of casino spaces. The carpets gently endure the passage of time, replaced only when their subtle colors fade or their patterns become too familiar. Each replacement quietly introduces new, soft confusion, keeping the gentle tradition alive, persistently silent and effective. As guests walk softly across these floors, they rarely wonder about their purpose. The carpets simply exist, gently supporting their quiet role. They ask nothing directly, expect nothing openly, but quietly continue influencing the gentle rhythm of casino life. And so, beneath the bright lights and soft murmur of casino activity, these carpets remain quietly at work. Their patterns continue swirling gently, endlessly, quietly reassuring visitors with their familiar gentle chaos, softly whispering, "Stay, play, stay just a little longer." If you've ever stayed in a quiet hotel, you might have experienced a gentle frustration. You arrive at your room, ready for rest, but the keycard refuses to open the door. It remains silently stubborn, making you return softly down the hallway to the front desk. These small cards seem simple. Made from thin plastic, they quietly hold your room's secret code within a tiny strip. Each swipe is gentle and brief, quietly unlocking doors, giving guests access to their temporary homes. Yet they often fail without warning, calmly refusing entry. When hotel rooms first used keys, things were different. Heavy metal keys hung from large tags, quietly reassuring in their solid presence. But keys could be lost easily, quietly slipping away, leaving guests locked outside, waiting softly for help to arrive. Then keycards arrived, lighter and more convenient. Hotels softly adopted them, making guest stays smoother, simpler. These cards carried no heavy weight, just quiet codes hidden in magnetic stripes. Still, they brought their own gentle challenges, quietly sensitive to invisible influences. These keycards hold data softly, protected only by a thin magnetic layer. It's fragile, quietly vulnerable to everyday items. Things we carry gently in pockets or bags can disrupt these cards. Credit cards, phones, even magnets on purses, all can silently erase the delicate information. Even gentle friction from clothing or wallets can slowly wear away the tiny magnetic patterns. Without noticing, guests quietly erase their own room keys, making the keycards gently useless. No loud announcement, just quiet failure at the door, patiently awaiting discovery. Some guests try placing keycards carefully in separate pockets, hoping to keep them safe. Others softly tuck them into sleeves provided by hotels, small envelopes designed to protect the delicate stripes. Yet even these measures offer quiet, incomplete protection. Hotels understand this gentle flaw. They quietly replace keycards without question, calmly resetting them for guests. Front desk staff offer soft apologies, gently assuring guests this happens all the time, accepting the quiet inconvenience as part of their daily routine. In earlier years, hotels tried thicker keycards, hoping for gentle durability, but thicker cards proved quietly inconvenient, harder to carry, less friendly to guests. The thin, delicate card became the softly accepted standard, gently balancing convenience with quiet imperfection. Some hotels experimented with different technologies, gentle solutions like digital keys sent softly to phones. Still, many guests prefer the quiet simplicity of physical cards. They feel more real, softly reassuring guests of their temporary ownership of a quiet, private space. Quietly, designers continued looking for ways to protect these cards. Some used stronger magnetic stripes, others added protective layers. Still, the cards remain gently fragile, quietly sensitive, softly reminding us of their vulnerability with each unexpected failure. A few hotels softly display quiet reminders in rooms or at desks, gently advising guests how to protect keycards. These notes are small, rarely noticed, calmly suggesting guests keep cards away from electronic devices, quietly acknowledging their gentle limitations. Sometimes guests softly find humor in the quiet struggle with keycards. They share gentle stories with friends, softly smiling at the common inconvenience. It becomes a quiet shared experience, softly understood by frequent travelers everywhere. Yet hotels rarely abandon the keycards. They quietly accept their gentle flaws, knowing that guests do too. It's a silent agreement, an unspoken understanding. The cards will fail occasionally, and everyone involved quietly accepts it. At times, guests wonder softly if there's a secret trick to keeping cards safe. They try gentle methods, placing cards carefully in bags, away from phones, credit cards, or keys. Still, the cards quietly find ways to fail, calmly surprising even the most careful travelers. Quietly, the hotel keycard persists, unchanged despite gentle frustrations. It softly symbolizes temporary ownership, gently holding room numbers, arrival, and departure dates. These cards become quiet mementos of travel, gently collected, softly forgotten, after trips end. Even as new methods emerge, the hotel keycard remains gently common, softly familiar. Guests quietly accept the occasional inconvenience, softly appreciating the card's quiet simplicity. It is a gentle reminder of travel's quiet imperfections, softly woven into the experience itself. Tonight, as guests softly sleep behind locked doors, their keycards rest gently nearby, quietly vulnerable. Tomorrow, they might softly fail again, quietly requiring a gentle return to the front desk, calmly starting the cycle anew, softly accepted by all involved. It's late. You're leaving a building you've never been inside before. The lights hum overhead, the tile echoes under your feet, and the glass doors in front of you don't offer a hint of how they work. One hand reaches forward, and in the smallest moment of hesitation, you guess wrong. The handle was shaped like it wanted to be pulled, but the door was designed to be pushed. A moment later, you read the small sign, "Push." You press it open, stepping through without much thought, and already the mistake is gone. It never mattered, but something strange lingers. You've done this before. Many times, at a library, a coffee shop, a dentist's office, somewhere with vinyl floors and a faint antiseptic smell. The guessing game never quite goes away, even when the answer is printed right in front of you. These aren't complicated machines, just hinges, glass, and metal. But something about how we interact with doors, how we hold them, move through them, misread them, says more about human behavior than you might expect. And somehow, we still get them wrong. The confusion doesn't come from the door itself, it comes from us, from the hands we've trained to read space before the eyes ever need to. It's not just a guess, it's muscle memory, interrupted. And when the door breaks the rule, it feels like it broke a promise. Long ago there wasn't much guessing involved. Early doors swung only one way, inward. That was the tradition. Doors were heavy, thick, mostly made of wood. They kept weather and strangers out. So it made sense that they pulled toward you, like drawing a curtain closed. Then came the era of fire codes, crowd control, and buildings built for exits. Suddenly, doors had to push outward. In an emergency, people had to move fast. They couldn't afford a mistake. And so the rules shifted, but our instincts didn't shift with them. To make pushing obvious, designers removed the handle, just a metal plate, smooth and cold. But the absence of a handle didn't always feel like an answer. It just made the gesture feel wrong. And so people still pulled. They hesitated. They bumped into glass. In response, the pull handle became an icon. Clean, rounded, waiting. It sent a clear message to the hand, but the message didn't always match the reality. Designers, architects, and even manufacturers began placing pull handles on push doors, not out of malice, just oversight. It happens all the time. A symmetrical glass door is installed backward. A bar is chosen for aesthetics, not ergonomics. Someone decides uniformity looks better than clarity. And suddenly another building joins the unspoken game of try your luck. There's a name for this. Norman doors, named after Don Norman, a designer who pointed out how bad design punishes the user instead of guiding them. If you guess wrong on a door, it's not your fault, it's the door's. Still, we don't change them. Not often. Offices live with confusing doors for decades. Hotels with mirrored entrances. Museums with invisible glass. There are entire buildings that feel like they don't want to let you in or out. And so we adapt. We learn which door at the mall pulls, which door at the pharmacy pushes, which one requires a strange twist of the wrist. Our minds forget, but our hands remember. A rhythm of hesitation and adjustment. Sometimes stickers help, sometimes they don't. Push and pull are just words, and the brain sees shapes before it reads text. That's why children get it wrong. Tourists, the distracted, the tired. It's not a matter of language, it's a matter of instinct, and the instinct has a rhythm. When it works, you glide through a doorway like it isn't even there. When it doesn't, the moment breaks. You stop. You correct. You perform a little ritual of apology to no one at all. There's no real damage, just a bump, a pause, a quiet sigh. But somehow we carry it. The slight embarrassment, the feeling that we should have known, that doors are supposed to make sense, yet buildings keep choosing appearance over behavior. Doors keep telling the wrong story, and people keep pulling when they should push. A strange little standoff, repeated millions of times each day, across hotels, hospitals, airports, and banks. Sometimes the door gives you a hint, a smudge on the glass, a worn patch on the plate, traces left by thousands of other hands who guessed wrong too. Invisible instructions, slowly printed by time. Even now there are architects sketching new buildings. Somewhere a handle is being chosen. Somewhere else, a glass pane is being mounted upside down. No one will notice until it's too late, until someone walks up and pulls. It's a small moment, it lasts less than a breath. But once you've noticed it, you'll see it everywhere. That quiet pause at the door, that gentle misread of space, that faint trace of hesitation that never quite leaves. There's a bench near the edge of the sidewalk, not new, not old, just there, sloped ever so slightly forward. You may not have noticed, but when you sit, it becomes clear. You shift, your back settles awkwardly, your feet press firmer into the ground than expected. You adjust, lean back, scoot forward. The bench doesn't meet you halfway. It holds its shape like a suggestion, not an invitation, and you feel it, the faintest push toward standing, toward going. It's not broken, it's built that way. For decades, this slant has shown up in parks, at bus stops, along trails, on sidewalks. Some are made of wood, some of metal, some molded from recycled plastic, all of them tilted just a little, like they want you to stay, but not for too long. The angle is subtle, a few degrees, maybe less, but the effect is unmistakable. You won't fall asleep on a bench like that, you won't settle in. It's a seat, yes, but it's not a home. It's a place between places. Still, benches weren't always like this. Once they were flat, comfortable, even. Park designers carved resting places into gardens and paths. They invited picnics. People lingered. People talked. Time passed slower, and no one was in a rush to move along. But then came the shift. City centers grew busier. Public space became watched space. Cleanliness became policy. Efficiency, the goal. A flat bench could become a bed. A tilted bench could not. A minor change, made for reasons no one fully discussed. At first it seemed harmless, just a design tweak. But the slope changed everything. It shortened the sit, it discouraged naps. And slowly, it shaped how long people felt allowed to stay. Not through signs, through sensation. You can feel it in your knees, that small strain to stay balanced. Not enough to hurt, just enough to suggest. This seat is not for comfort. This is not a destination, just a pause. Keep moving. Designers call it defensive architecture, structures built to prevent behaviors rather than support them. Armrests placed in the middle of benches, spikes embedded into ledges, forward-tilted seats, each detail telling a person something, often without saying anything at all. These benches aren't broken. They're designed to resist. Not everyone notices, but your body knows, your spine knows, your breathing shifts when you sit. You don't stay long, even when you're tired, especially when you're tired. Still, not all of them are like this. Some older benches remain, tucked in shaded corners of forgotten parks. Their planks are straight, their backs inviting. You'll find squirrels beneath them, scratch marks, maybe initials carved long ago. In secret, they feel different. They're slower, they don't rush you. If you lie down, no one looks twice, nothing pushes you forward. There's no tilt to remind you that you're in public, just space, and quiet, and time that doesn't ask to be counted. But those are vanishing, replaced by newer models, glossier, sleeker, slightly off balance. You may not notice the shift as you sit, but after a few minutes, your legs will, and then your shoulders, and then the thought arrives. Maybe it's time to go. It works. It always works. The bench never speaks, it just leans, just enough to suggest that rest has a limit. A silent nudge, disguised as ergonomics. It doesn't have to be steep, just consistent. You'll find them outside hospitals, in airports, along city sidewalks, where no one is meant to pause too long, even at bus stops, where waiting is required. But comfort is not. The tilt becomes familiar, expected, and normal. Sometimes it's hard to say if it's deliberate, if the bench was built that way, or if it sagged over time. But when every bench in a row leans the same direction, the message becomes hard to miss. Even now, someone sits for a moment, shifts, adjusts, then stands again, unsure why. Maybe their ride arrived, or maybe the bench spoke louder than they realized. Not in words, just in weight, in posture. And then the space is empty again. A place made to rest, but only for a little while. A tilted seat in a world that rarely stays still. A pause, held between footsteps, already fading. If you've ever settled into a train seat in Europe, you might have noticed something curious. The fabric beneath you, with its sharp lines and swirling shapes, seems almost too deliberate. The patterns are bold, but in a quiet way, unobtrusive, yet persistent. It's a kind of design that doesn't demand attention, but it quietly asks you to notice. The patterns are not random, though they may appear that way at first. Each curve, each angle is carefully planned, softening the starkness of the metal and glass around you. They exist to calm, to comfort. The sharpness of the shapes gives way to a sense of harmony, even in motion. In the stillness of the station, the seat fabric stands ready. When the train begins to move, so does the design, sliding gently beneath you, flowing in waves. The colors and patterns become part of the train's rhythm, moving in sync with the quiet hum of the tracks below. Long ago, designers began thinking about what train seats should feel like, not just in comfort, but in their very presence. The abstract geometric patterns were chosen, not because they were necessary, but because they gently guided the mind. Their purpose was to create a subtle sense of stability, even in a space built for constant movement. The materials used for the fabric are simple, durable, sturdy, and smooth to the touch. Yet, in their simplicity, they carry a quiet elegance. The threads are woven tightly, almost imperceptibly, ensuring that each seat remains functional while offering something more, something pleasing to the eye, something soft for the mind. Even now, when new trains roll into service, these designs persist. The fabrics may change, the colors may shift, but the abstract patterns remain a constant. They follow an unspoken tradition, silently reminding passengers that even in the rush of travel, there can be moments of stillness. The patterns, while seemingly abstract, serve another quieter purpose. The interplay of shapes creates a kind of visual distraction, softening the sharpness of the surroundings. In a train full of hurried people, their eyes wander and rest upon the fabric, finding something to anchor them before the journey begins. Still, these patterns are more than mere decoration. They act as a subtle barrier, a way to separate the passenger from the surroundings. If only for a moment, they create a private space, a cocoon of sorts, in which you are gently isolated from the chaos of the train. Without much thought, your eyes drift over the fabric as the train begins to move. The patterns begin to dance, like a quiet rhythm, easing your mind into the journey ahead. It's as if the seat itself is part of the experience, a companion for the ride. Even now, when we no longer think of them, these patterns endure. Their purpose is hidden in plain sight, lingering like a quiet memory. They don't call for attention, yet they're always there, softly anchoring you as the train glides through the landscape. You might not notice them at first, but once you do, something about the fabric feels familiar. It's a detail so small, so subtle, that it almost vanishes into the background. But it's always there, gently shaping the experience of travel in ways we rarely understand. As the train moves along the tracks, the patterns shift beneath you. The journey becomes a blur of colors and lines, but the fabric remains constant. It hums quietly, a reminder that even in motion, there is stillness, that even in the busiest places, there can be peace. Every train seat, with its abstract patterns, is a little piece of thoughtfulness stitched into the fabric of our everyday lives. It's there, waiting for us to notice. Even if we never do, it doesn't need us to see it, only to feel it, soft and quiet beneath our fingertips. And when the journey ends, the patterns remain, waiting for the next traveler, the next passenger to settle into their seat. It's as if the seat knows it's been part of something larger, a quiet connection shared between the seat and the traveler, a link that remains unnoticed but never forgotten. In the quiet of the station, long after the train has left, the fabric sits waiting. The colors fade gently in the dim light, but the design remains. A soft echo of the journey, a quiet reminder that some details are meant to exist, even if they never truly leave the fabric of our memory. Perhaps tomorrow, or the next time you travel, you'll notice the patterns again, or perhaps you won't. But even if you don't, the fabric will still be there, still carrying its quiet mystery, still waiting, unchanged. It simply exists, quietly, silently, softly. A fluorescent light flickers above, not enough to bother you, just enough to remind you where you are. The ceiling doesn't do much, but it's always there, pale, patterned, covered, in a quiet field of tiny holes that you probably never meant to notice. Still, you do. Eventually, maybe in a moment of boredom, or while waiting for a meeting to end, maybe while lying on your back in a doctor's office, trying not to think about the reason you're there. You stare upward, and there they are. Dozens of specks, maybe hundreds. They're not symmetrical, not quite. Some are straight rows. Some are scattered, like a field of faint dots in snow. None of them seem important, but they're always there. In schools, hospitals, government buildings, cubicles, airports. The tiles don't change much, and neither do the holes. You might have assumed they were for decoration, or maybe just some strange manufacturing process, but the holes are there for a reason. And the reason is sound. Without them, ceilings echo, walls bounce voices, every step becomes louder, every phone call spreads farther. These holes, these tiny silent openings, are there to keep the room from ringing. They don't absorb much, but they don't need to. They're paired with a hidden layer inside the tile, a soft kind of mineral that catches echoes and keeps them from multiplying. The holes just let the sound in. This makes conversation easier. It dulls the clicks of keyboards. It softens the buzz of HVAC vents and printers and voices and time ticking past. And most of the time, no one notices. It's not designed to be noticed. Office ceilings weren't always like this. Early offices were louder. Everything echoed. Footsteps stretched across the floor. Rooms were built from wood and glass. Typewriters, heels, and phones competed for attention. There was no quiet, only space. But then came the shift, acoustic control, drop ceilings, a suspended grid that lowered the ceiling just enough to fit ducts, lights, wires, and tiles. Suddenly ceilings became functional, a place to hide things, a place to control things, a place to listen without hearing. The holes didn't just help with sound, they helped with hiding it. Ventilation, wiring, smoke detectors, sprinklers. Everything could be tucked behind the grid, but the tiles were thin, so holes could still let air pass through. A ceiling that breathed, and yet despite all that, most people don't look up. The tiles are background, beige or white or something in between. Always just out of sight, always quietly watching, like wallpaper for the air above your head. Some are square, some are rectangles. Most are fragile. If you've ever seen one cracked or stained, you know how quickly they fall out of place. They break with a touch. They crumble with time. But the holes stay, even in broken pieces. There's no strict rule on how many holes, or where they go. Some patterns are organized, almost like Braille. Others are random, scattered like confetti. But every dot leads somewhere, into foam, into fiber, into the hush that fills the room. It's strange to think how much effort goes into silence. How many things are designed not to speak, but to listen. The ceiling doesn't echo back. It absorbs. It softens. It makes a room feel safer, or maybe just smaller. Even now in buildings where nobody works anymore, the ceiling tiles remain, unbothered, out of reach, still full of holes, still holding on to sound that no one is making, still waiting. A room without these tiles feels different. You can feel the ceiling speaking back to you. Your voice gets sharper. Footsteps bounce. The room doesn't hold you. It stares, and you miss the holes. Not because they're pretty, not because they matter, but because they hold something you didn't know was missing. A kind of gentleness in the air, a muffled hum where echoes might have been. No one asks for them. No one celebrates them. But they're there in almost every place that wants you to stay quiet. Not silent, just held, dampened, wrapped in a kind of invisible fabric. You may never look up again. Or maybe you will. Maybe next time you're waiting, lying back, pausing in the middle of nowhere, you'll notice them again. Those tiny holes in the ceiling above. Still watching, still waiting, still catching your voice, one soft breath at a time. In the quiet corner of a crowded store, a small sticker rests quietly on a box. It's not much to look at, just a few lines of text, but there's something in the way it's placed, something about its very presence that seems to speak louder than the product itself. It wasn't always this way. Once, warning labels were simple, almost unnoticeable things. A small symbol here, a brief sentence there. They were there to keep people safe, to remind them of the potential dangers hidden in everyday objects. But over time, they grew louder. Slowly, their design began to shift, evolving into something more. They became more than just a precaution. With every new regulation, they turned into a form of language, one that had to be precise, carefully crafted. A single misstep in their wording could open the door to lawsuits or liability. In the beginning, there were just a few basic rules. A small triangle here, a line of text there. But as industries expanded, the need for more warnings grew. Companies began to hire designers who could transform these legal requirements into something more, something that caught the eye and made a statement, no matter how small. Still, even the most beautiful warning labels remain humble. They don't ask for attention. Yet, there's an elegance to the way they command it. The stark contrast between the bold letters and the soft background color creates a subtle, delicate balance. It's a dance of colors and fonts, gentle but insistent. Without much thought, we might see a warning label as a simple thing. Yet, there's an almost artistic quality to the way each element is placed. The fine print is not just there for safety, it's there for the law, for protection, for structure, and that's the heart of it. Quiet, persistent design serving an unseen purpose. Even now, warning labels are ever-changing. Each new set of regulations brings fresh ideas, fresh rules. Designers tweak fonts, rearrange symbols, and adjust placement to fit the letter of the law. Some might even call it a legal art form, a delicate balance of words, colors, and laws, all hidden in plain sight. Take a moment next time you encounter a warning label. Notice how it fits within the design of the object. It's never intrusive, yet it stands firm in its quiet presence. It whispers, "Here I am," a reminder, a guardian, a safeguard. Sometimes, it's even more visible than the product itself. There's a strange comfort in these labels. They don't demand to be noticed, yet somehow we rely on them. They provide us with a sense of security, a feeling that someone, somewhere, thought of the dangers before we ever did. In a way, they protect us, without us ever needing to ask. Still, the materials change over time, even the way they feel. Some labels are smooth, others are textured, and a few even have a slight gloss to them. Their presence is felt not just by sight, but by touch. Each one leaves a subtle impression, a reminder that they've been designed with care and precision. The rules surrounding these labels are strict, even in their design. A symbol must be a certain size, placed at a specific angle. Words must be legible from a distance, even if they are just a warning about something as simple as a hot cup of coffee. Every detail matters, yet none of it is meant to draw too much attention. And yet, with all these rules, there is an artistry to their design. Consider the simplicity of a single black exclamation point in a yellow triangle, or the way a small faded icon can convey a message more clearly than a paragraph of text. Each one tells a story, soft and quiet, but undeniably present. As industries grow, so too does the complexity of their warnings. With the introduction of new technology, new dangers, new inventions, the labels evolve. Now, we have labels for electronics, chemicals, and even furniture. They whisper softly about the hazards we never think to worry about until they are written down before us. Over time, as we encounter these labels again and again, they become part of the background. We barely notice them, until one day, a new design catches our eye. It's different. Perhaps it's the color, the placement, or the text. And for a fleeting moment, we wonder how many times we've passed this same label without truly seeing it. There's something poetic in the way these labels persist, untouched by time or fashion. They don't follow trends. They exist in their own world, quietly holding their place in the fabric of our lives. In a way, they're more enduring than the products they adorn, a constant reminder of both care and caution. Even as we drift towards sleep, imagine the quiet label on the box by your bedside, its soft lines and quiet words standing guard. It doesn't need to be acknowledged, doesn't need to be explained. It simply exists, as it always has, silently protecting us, without asking for attention. And when tomorrow comes, you may not notice it at all. Or perhaps you'll pause for a brief moment, seeing it for what it is, a small, careful work of design. Quiet, humble, and constant, it waits, ready to fade again into the background, just like the day itself. Perhaps that's all it needs. A quiet presence, there when we need it, and gone when we don't. It doesn't ask for anything, but it never really leaves. In the quiet corners of an airport, the seats seem to wait patiently, lined up in rows. If you pause long enough, you may notice something strange. They're not as comfortable as they could be. There's something in the way they nudge your body, ever so gently, as you settle in. These seats, quietly scattered through bustling terminals, are designed with purpose, though not one most of us think about. The fabric is firm, the edges sharp, the cushions thinner than you might expect. It's almost as if they're made to remind you of something that you shouldn't stay too long. It's been years since airports were simply places of transition. Before the crowds and long security lines, people waited casually, perhaps lingering for hours, lost in the hum of distant planes. But that was before the design changed, before comfort became secondary to something else entirely. Quietly, the architects of airports began to think about how to shape behavior. They realized that people, when too comfortable, might just stay. So the seats became less inviting, subtly firm, as if to suggest maybe it's time to stand up, to move, to wander. Still, this design wasn't born out of malice. It was born from efficiency. In a space meant for travel, there's little time for leisure. People were meant to feel the passing of time, not sink into it. The gentle nudge to stand, to walk, is a soft reminder that movement is part of the journey. You might notice how the arms of the seat are angled, just enough to discourage stretching out, a gentle slope, a hint of restriction. It's almost like the seat knows exactly how far you should lean, and no further. Uncomfortable, yes, but not painful. Just enough to make you reconsider staying. Even now, as terminals fill and the hours stretch, the seats remain unchanged. It's as if they've become part of the rhythm, quietly urging travelers to keep moving. The waiting areas are never meant to be places of pause. They are liminal spaces, fleeting moments on the way to something else. Over time, these seats have become familiar, accepted without thought. We sit, we wait, we fidget, and eventually we rise. They are gentle in their discomfort, a kind of unspoken agreement between the traveler and the space, not designed for rest, but for the quiet expectancy of what's next. And yet, there's a strange comfort in knowing that these seats are always there, always waiting. Though they ask for no attention, their presence speaks volumes. In their quiet discomfort, they become part of the airport's identity, a silent invitation to move, to wander, to never quite settle. Sometimes, you might find a rare cushioned seat tucked away in a corner. It stands out, offering a small respite, almost as if it doesn't belong. But even in these moments, the discomfort lingers, like a gentle whisper, reminding you that the journey has not yet ended. Still, these seats continue to hold a story of their own. They sit there, day after day, witnessing arrivals and departures. Every wrinkle in the fabric tells of a momentary pause, a brief wait, a fleeting thought, and yet they never become truly comfortable. They were never meant to. Even when you find a seat that offers just a little more cushion, it never lasts long. The design is too subtle, too persistent. It's as if the airport itself knows that comfort is fleeting, just like the passengers who pass through. There's always something else to do, somewhere else to be. Without much thought, we sit, and then we rise again. The seats, though slightly uncomfortable, have done their job. They've whispered their quiet message. This place is for passing through, for waiting, for just a moment in time. Nothing more, nothing less. Over the years, these seats have evolved. They've shifted in shape, in material, in size. But the discomfort remains, as if it's woven into the very fabric of the airport itself. A quiet tradition, a soft part of the travel experience, always there, always waiting, asking nothing more than for you to keep moving. Sometimes, as you glance at an empty seat, you might wonder, was this always meant to be so? Perhaps not. Perhaps in another world, these seats would be plush, soft and welcoming. But in this world, they are firm, purposeful, always nudging you toward the next step. The design, though, is not loud. It's not demanding. It simply exists, gently guiding you through the motions. And even now, as the hours tick by, as the lights fade and the planes soar, the seats remain in place, a quiet part of the dance. And so, in the soft glow of terminal lights, the seats continue their quiet existence. Not designed to be remembered, not meant to be enjoyed, but always present. A gentle nudge, a soft suggestion, a reminder that time moves on, whether you're ready or not. Perhaps tomorrow you'll sit a little longer, or perhaps you'll rise more quickly. But either way, the seats will still be there, unchanged, offering their quiet discomfort, patiently waiting for the next traveler to come, to sit, and then, quietly to rise once more. In the quiet corners of busy streets, there's a small unspoken presence, a black bin perhaps, or a simple blue recycling can, sitting just beside the sidewalk. We pass by it countless times, hardly thinking of the design beneath its familiar form. Yet it quietly asks something of us. These bins weren't always here, though. Long ago, trash was simply thrown to the ground, tucked away in alleys, or hidden beneath the brush. But as cities grew, so did the need to keep them clean. A trash can, once a simple container, became something more, something carefully considered. In the early days, trash cans were plain, often unnoticed, like forgotten corners. They did their job, but they weren't meant to be much more than that. They stood still like silent sentinels, waiting for their next load of waste. But slowly, their role began to shift, quietly transforming over time. Today, public trash cans have a purpose beyond their simple function. Their shape, color, and even the size of their openings are designed with intention. Soft curves and gentle angles make them approachable. Their materials, smooth metal or sturdy plastic, hold a weight that invites us to pause, even if only for a moment. Without much thought, the colors, too, play their part. Bright greens and bold blues whisper gently to us, signaling where we should place our waste. It's a subtle reminder, inviting us to contribute to something larger than ourselves. Even the lid, designed to be opened without much effort, guides us toward the right action. Some trash cans, especially in parks and city squares, are shaped in a way that suggests a gentle call to action. The opening is narrow, just wide enough to slip in a can or a crumpled napkin, but too small for larger items. This simple design prevents overstuffing, encouraging people to think twice before adding more. Still, the material used for each bin carries its own message. Metal bins often feel cold to the touch, sturdy and unyielding, while plastic ones seem more welcoming, warmer. The texture of the bin, smooth or with gentle ridges, gives us an unspoken invitation to engage, to interact, to dispose of what's no longer needed. Even the placement of these bins tells a story. They're not placed randomly. They're carefully positioned, often at intersections or near high-traffic areas, where we're most likely to pause. It's as though they're waiting for us, a quiet companion in the flow of the day, ready to absorb what we leave behind. And yet, these bins aren't just for waste. In many places, they subtly encourage the act of recycling. The bins are split into sections, one for recyclables, another for trash, each with a different color, a different label. These divisions quietly suggest that we think before we toss, to separate what can be reused from what must be discarded. Even the act of throwing something away becomes part of a quiet rhythm. As we approach, our hand moves instinctively, almost without thinking. The motion becomes familiar, soothing. It's as if the trash can has become a small, unspoken ritual in our daily lives, a momentary pause in an otherwise busy day. Still, some designs take this a step further. Trash cans near restaurants or theaters often feature curved openings, inviting us to drop something in with ease. These designs make it feel almost effortless, as if the bin is helping us along, guiding our actions with its soft, friendly form. Over time, we've come to accept these bins as part of our surroundings. We no longer question their presence. They blend into the background, quietly doing their job, always available when needed. And yet their design still impacts us, shaping our behavior without us ever realizing it. In certain places, bins are designed to be larger, sturdier, perhaps to match the demands of a busy crowd. The weight of the can itself, heavier, more imposing, subtly tells us to dispose of waste quickly. It's a quiet invitation to continue on, without lingering too long. And then there are the small bins tucked into corners, in parks or along walkways. Their size, small and unobtrusive, creates a sense of intimacy. You might not notice them at first, but once you do, it feels like a soft invitation to contribute, to participate in the quiet upkeep of the space around you. Sometimes, it's easy to overlook the careful design of these bins. We walk by them every day, hardly stopping to think about their purpose or their gentle influence. Yet, in the background, their design continues to shape us, to guide our actions in small, subtle ways. Quietly, the world moves forward, and so do we. The bins sit in their corners, standing guard, waiting for their next visitor. The city hums softly around them, and the rhythm of everyday life continues, shaped gently by these overlooked companions. They don't ask for attention, but still, they're there, waiting, always present, always ready to receive. It's a quiet design that doesn't demand notice, yet continues to shape the smallest of moments in our day, fading in and out like a dream we've long forgotten. And as you walk by a trash can tomorrow, you might not notice it at first. But then, just for a moment, you might wonder how something so simple can have such a quiet, unnoticed presence. It's a small detail, perhaps, but one that never truly leaves us. Most people never notice the color of a filing cabinet. It's always there, In every office, a quiet part of the background. But if you pause for a moment, you might wonder why it's always the same. Beige, soft, and muted, almost blending in, unremarkable yet somehow constant. Filing cabinets once served as the backbone of office organization. Before digital files and cloud storage, these metal boxes were filled with paper, holding memories, documents, and names in quiet order. And with them, the color beige settled in, a soft, unassuming hue that became the quiet standard. Back when filing cabinets were first crafted from metal, they weren't intended to be decorative. They were simply functional, designed to store and organize. But as they spread through offices, something about their simplicity felt just right. And so beige became the choice, the color that quietly worked with everything else. Still, there's no clear answer as to why beige won out. It wasn't the only option. Grays and browns, even whites, made their appearance in brief stints, but none of them stuck. Beige simply felt right, calm, neutral, never harsh or demanding attention, just there, blending into the background, as if it belonged. Even now, you may not think twice when you see a beige filing cabinet. It's a color that doesn't ask for much. It doesn't try to stand out, doesn't strive for attention. Instead, it offers a quiet presence, never too bright or dark, always just soft enough to blend seamlessly into any room. The material, too, plays a part in this subtle harmony. Metal cabinets, cool to the touch, are often paired with this muted shade, giving them a soft, almost fabric-like feel. The beige helps soften the sharp edges of the cold metal, creating a gentle contrast that's easy on the eyes. Over the years, the beige filing cabinet became more than just a color choice. It became a kind of unspoken standard, a detail that everyone accepted without question. And even as office spaces evolve, even as the world shifts toward digital, the beige cabinet quietly endures, holding its place without ever demanding attention. In an age where everything is constantly changing, there's something oddly comforting about the beige filing cabinet. It is a reminder of a simpler time when paper ruled, when things were stored in neat, organized rows, tucked away behind metal doors. A subtle relic, still holding its ground. Without much thought, the color beige became synonymous with offices and organization. It didn't compete with the bustling world around it. Instead, it quietly worked alongside every other detail, a soft background that never disturbed the flow of things. It became a part of the rhythm of office life. It's almost as though beige was chosen for its quiet persistence. It doesn't require a bold statement. It doesn't need to be remembered. And yet it's always there, standing firm, as if it has always been this way. Its presence is constant, like the hum of an office late in the afternoon. Perhaps it's this quiet reliability that makes beige so perfect. No matter what trends come and go, the beige filing cabinet remains, its color never straying far from the soft, muted tone that has always been a part of the office landscape. It doesn't change, doesn't need to. It simply is. And though other colors might appear, sometimes a splash of gray or a dash of white, beige remains the steadfast choice. It's as though the world of filing cabinets reached an unspoken agreement. Beige became the color that felt the most at home, blending effortlessly with every office's rhythm and style. The size of the cabinet, the cold metal, and the soft, almost velvety beige finish create a feeling of permanence. It's a color that doesn't try to impress or dazzle, but simply fits in. It's never too loud or too bright. It's the quiet companion of the office, always there, always steady, even when offices change. When companies evolve and workspaces shift, the beige filing cabinet stays the same. It may be replaced, yes, but its color endures. It's a constant thread through the fabric of office history, a small detail that never asks for attention, but is always there. Maybe it's the way the beige color feels in your hand, the way the metal clicks open with a soft, comforting sound. You don't have to think about it. You just open the drawer, pull out the paper you need and continue on. It's never in the way, it's simply there when you need it. In the quiet moments of the office, when the hum of work slows, the beige filing cabinet is still present. It sits in the corner, just as it always has. No one notices, yet it's always there, waiting patiently, holding space in a world that moves too quickly to notice the small things. And as the office empties at the end of the day, the beige cabinet remains. It doesn't stand out, doesn't call attention to itself. It simply waits, its soft color glowing quietly in the dim light, a reminder that even the smallest details can hold a steady place in the world. Even as the office fades from view, the beige filing cabinet continues, patiently waiting. Its color, subtle and calm, holds its place, not needing anything more. It's a quiet presence that never disappears, always there, always gentle, always part of the fabric of daily life. Once, dishwashers had a multitude of buttons, each promising to make the task of washing dishes more precise, more tailored. Most people never bothered to press them. Instead, they pressed the same button, time after time, ignoring the dozens of others that quietly waited beneath their fingertips. Back then, dishwashers weren't just machines, they were intricate designs, almost like puzzles. The buttons, placed so carefully on the control panel, invited choice. You could select delicate, ponce, or quick. Yet, in reality, there was always one cycle that did everything. The others simply remained silent, forgotten. Each button felt heavy in its own way, like a decision waiting to be made. Pressing them was a small act of trust, trust in a machine that didn't need to be that complicated. The cycle didn't change much, no matter which button you pressed. Still, the buttons were there, offering a subtle illusion of choice. Without much thought, we began to ignore the extra settings. The machine worked just fine on the normal cycle. The complexity, once so proud, slowly became unnecessary. But the buttons remained, sitting side by side like relics of a time when we believed more options meant more control. You may have felt it without realizing, the subtle weight of the buttons, the way your fingers lingered for just a moment longer, as if deciding what mattered. But in the end, the dishwashing machine always did the same thing. The buttons simply didn't matter. Still, the buttons were there, lined up in their little rows, waiting for a press. Each one, like a quiet promise, whispered that perhaps one day you'd need them. Maybe tomorrow you'd use the quick wash or the ponce setting. But mostly, they remained untouched, just the same. Sometimes, the buttons clicked with a satisfying firmness, like a small ritual, a touch of purpose. You pressed one, then another, and then returned to the same one you always used. It was an act of meaning, though the meaning was never clear, always hidden in the quiet complexity of the design. Even now, those old machines stand quietly in forgotten kitchens. Their buttons have grown dusty, their labels faded, but if you listen carefully, you can almost hear the hum of the machine, the soft click of a button pressed with expectation, even if it's no longer necessary. Once, it was easy to see the dishwasher as something more than just a machine. The buttons were there to offer options, to make the task feel like a choice. In those moments, we believed that pressing a button could change everything. But in truth, nothing changed. The task stayed the same. The buttons, though unnecessary, persisted. They were built to last, their designs carefully crafted to suggest a purpose beyond the ordinary. Yet, as time passed, they quietly slipped into the background, their original purpose forgotten. Still, the buttons remained, offering a silent comfort to those who remembered. The newer models came with fewer buttons, sleek and simple. The complexity vanished, leaving behind a single uncomplicated button. Yet, even now when you stand before an older machine, you might remember the quiet clatter of all those buttons, lined up like keys on an unused piano. In some quiet kitchens, the older dishwashers still sit, their buttons unchanged. The cycle may no longer be as important, but the buttons remain, little reminders of a time when technology seemed more thoughtful. It's as if the buttons are waiting for something, waiting to be pressed, waiting to be used. And so, in the quiet rhythm of everyday life, the old buttons continue to sit, unused but never truly forgotten. Each one still offers a soft mystery, an unnecessary promise, as the machine hums on doing what it always did. The buttons are gone, but they leave behind their soft, unnecessary trace. Maybe one day, when you least expect it, you'll press one of those buttons just to see what happens. Or maybe you'll simply walk past, not giving them another thought. But either way, those buttons will always be there, waiting quietly, offering their complexity. Most people never notice the soft pale yellow of a pencil, but it's always there, quietly waiting in your hand. A gentle presence, unnoticed in its simplicity. Once, pencils weren't yellow. They were simple, plain, and often unfinished. Their wood was raw, their shape irregular, crafted for function, not beauty. They had no color to define them, no polish to distinguish them. They were just pencils, created to serve a single purpose. But then something happened, an accident, almost. It began with a man named Hyman Lipman. He didn't know that attaching an eraser to the end of a pencil would forever change its path. He simply saw a need, a small detail that would make the pencil more useful. In the years that followed, the pencil grew, quietly shaped by a series of decisions, small and subtle. The core of the pencil, once exposed and vulnerable, needed protection. It needed something to safeguard the delicate graphite inside. And so, a solution was found, a golden metal casing. Gold, though never meant to shine, whispered a quiet promise of quality. It wasn't about luxury, but something deeper. It was about durability, something built to last, and this delicate metallic layer made the pencil seem more refined, as though it had found a new identity, quietly valuable, not just functional. Still, it wasn't enough. The pencil needed something more. It needed color, something that could complement the metal without overshadowing it. Yellow was chosen, not for any particular reason, but because it felt right. It felt like a whisper of gold, a soft echo of luxury without the expense. Yellow was, and still is, a color of optimism. It's the color of sunlight, of new beginnings. And so, the pencil with its gentle yellow coat became something that quietly caught the eye. It became a symbol, not of extravagance, but of simple everyday value. The decision to paint pencils yellow wasn't a grand one. It wasn't planned, but like so many small shifts in history, it spread almost unnoticed. Other pencil makers followed suit, and soon the yellow pencil was the one we saw most often, the one that became the familiar tool in classrooms and offices. Even now, when you pick up a pencil, the yellow feels like home. It's a small detail, one that doesn't demand attention, but one that's somehow always there. Its color doesn't need explanation. It simply exists, quietly shaping our understanding of what a pencil should be. The yellow pencil doesn't need to stand out. It doesn't need to be the loudest in the room. Its color is soft, humble, and calming, an ever-present reminder that even the simplest objects can gather meaning over time. In fact, this little pencil, yellow and simple, has traveled through decades of desks and hands, never changing, never needing to be anything more than what it is. It has found its place in the quiet rituals of daily life. Somewhere along the way, the pencil stopped being just a tool. It became a symbol of something constant, a small piece of everyday history that in its simplicity asks nothing of us but to be used, gently, calmly. When you hold it, you may not think about the yellow. You may not wonder how it became the color we know today. But somehow, it's always there. A quiet, comforting companion, always waiting in the background, never quite fading away. As the years pass, the pencil remains, soft in its yellow, always ready for the next mark, the next word. It simply waits, unchanged by the world around it, a gentle echo of a decision made long ago. And so when you reach for a pencil next, notice the quiet yellow, notice the small, almost forgotten details that shape the world around us. It doesn't demand to be remembered, but it's there, holding its place, waiting for the next hand to hold it. With each gentle stroke, the pencil marks the quiet passage of time. It's yellow, like an old memory, fades and brightens with each touch, but always remains, never asking for attention, just there, quietly enduring. In the end, the pencil asks for nothing more than to be held, to be used, to leave its mark in the world, softly, without fanfare, without expectation. Its yellow remains, gentle and steady, a quiet reminder that sometimes the simplest things have the most enduring stories. You may have felt it without realizing, a quiet sweetness in the air, a soft, unexpected fragrance rising from a desk or a pencil case. It's subtle, faint, but it's there. The scent of an eraser, shaped like a piece of fruit or a little cupcake, lingering as if it belongs. Once, erasers were just tools, small rubber blocks meant only to undo our mistakes. There was nothing special about them. They served a single simple purpose, but over time the eraser began to change. It grew more colorful, more playful, more fragrant, a tiny revolution in the world of school supplies. The first scented erasers arrived in the 1980s. They weren't necessary. No one needed an eraser to smell sweet, but still they appeared, often shaped like fruit, strawberries, lemons, apples, and their faint scent was a soft, unexpected gift. It was enough to make you pause, just for a moment, and smile. These early scented erasers didn't change much. The scent was light, almost imperceptible at times, and would fade as quickly as it came. But still, it lingered, a reminder that not everything needed to be practical. Sometimes the smallest touches, like a scent, could make the ordinary feel just a little more magical. Still, no one quite knows why scented erasers became so popular. They weren't improving the function of an eraser after all. But in a world full of dull, repetitive tasks, perhaps it was their quiet, unexpected joy that made them stand out. A small scent, a tiny shape, a moment of childhood whimsy. As time passed, the erasers grew even more elaborate. They didn't just smell like fruit anymore. Soon there were erasers shaped like ice cream cones, cupcakes, and even little animals. Each one held a faint fragrance, a quiet whisper of sweetness in a world of papers, pens, and notebooks. The scents, though never lasting long, became part of their charm. The freshness would fade with use, but it didn't matter. The brief moments of sweetness were enough, just enough to remind you that even something as simple as an eraser could hold a tiny bit of joy. And so the scented eraser found its place in the world, not as something necessary, but as something delightful. It was a small indulgence, a tiny escape from the world of schoolwork, a soft distraction that didn't demand anything in return. It was there to be enjoyed, if only for a few moments. Even now in stores and classrooms, the tradition continues. The shapes may have changed over the years, perhaps now a little more modern, a little more intricate, but the scent remains. Whether it's cotton candy, chocolate, or watermelon, the erasers quietly offer that same brief moment of joy, a soft invitation to smile. Sometimes, it seems strange that something as simple as a scented eraser can still hold our attention. After all, it serves no real purpose beyond its original function, yet it endures. Perhaps it's not about what it does, but how it makes us feel, how it adds a quiet, unexpected pleasure to the everyday. Still, there's something comforting in their simplicity. The scented eraser doesn't try to do too much. It doesn't demand your attention. It simply is, a small object waiting to bring a little joy when you least expect it. A fleeting moment, soon forgotten, but always there when you look for it. And perhaps that's the secret. These erasers aren't meant to last. They're not meant to change the world, but for a brief moment, they offer something rare, a small, unnecessary joy in the middle of a busy day, a soft scent that makes everything just a little lighter. Even today, these tiny objects endure. They sit in drawers, tucked away in pencil cases, sometimes forgotten, but never truly gone. They are small relics of a simpler time, soft echoes of childhood moments that still linger, even in the quiet corners of a desk or a classroom. So when you find yourself holding one, pressing it to your nose, feeling the smooth rubber beneath your fingers, remember that it's more than just an eraser. It's a tiny piece of nostalgia, a simple reminder that sometimes the most unexpected things can bring us the most comfort. In the stillness of the day, as you set down your pencil and close your notebook, the scent of the eraser will slowly fade, like a quiet memory. But maybe, just for a moment, you'll hold on to it. A soft, unspoken piece of joy, quietly waiting to bring a smile the next time you notice it. And as the day fades into night, the world of scented erasers continues, quietly tucked away in the background of life. A simple object, forgotten by most, but still gently enduring, softly offering a tiny sweet reminder of something small and lovely. Once, when offices were still places of formality, a curious change quietly crept in. Instead of the heavy, rigid furniture we know today, a new kind of chair appeared. It was light, soft, and filled with air, an office chair that wasn't made of wood or metal, but something far gentler. Long before these inflatable chairs arrived, office furniture was unyielding. Chairs were built to last, heavy and firm, designed for work rather than comfort. The world of offices had no room for anything that might seem too playful or unsteady. But then the soft, air-filled chair began to emerge. The material was a quiet marvel. Rubberized fabric, smooth and cool to the touch, would stretch and shift with every small movement. It felt almost like a cloud, an odd but welcoming sensation. You'd sit, and the chair would gently hold you, its lightness almost making you float. Still, most people never wondered why such a design appeared. The office was meant for productivity, for focus, and yet, in the midst of an era when work began to feel more flexible, the inflatable chair whispered of comfort and ease, something that seemed almost unnecessary, but oddly fitting in a world of change. In its early days, the inflatable office chair was a curious blend of novelty and comfort. It had a lightness to it, not just in weight, but in purpose. It didn't command attention the way traditional furniture did. It simply existed, quietly offering comfort without the demands of permanence. The chairs arrived with gentle promises of a new kind of office. They were playful, colorful even, with shades of blue, orange, and green. These colors felt like a soft breath of fresh air, bringing a sense of lightness into spaces once dominated by dark wood and heavy leather. The material was unlike anything most people had felt in an office before. It was a soft, pliable thing, neither firm nor stiff. The air inside adjusted with your movements, cradling you as you sat. It was an unusual experience, one that felt more like a relaxed lounge than a workspace. But despite the comfort, the inflatable chairs didn't last long. Perhaps it was the subtle sound of air, barely heard but always present. Or maybe it was the softness that over time seemed to lose its shape. These chairs were too light, too impermanent for an office environment that valued stability and order. Without much thought, these chairs quietly faded away. They were replaced by something stronger, more substantial. The weight of traditional office furniture returned, and the air-filled chairs, once a symbol of modern comfort, disappeared just as quickly as they arrived. Even now, they are mostly forgotten. A faint memory of an era when offices weren't so rigid, when workspaces could still feel a little playful. But if you sit in a sturdy office chair, you might catch yourself wondering what it would be like to drift back into a chair filled with air. Maybe the inflatable office chair was always meant to be short-lived, a passing moment in time. It wasn't made to last, but to exist quietly for just a while. Its brief appearance in the office world was a whisper, a soft suggestion of change that never fully took hold. Still, some small part of that memory lingers. Perhaps in the way we sit now, a little more relaxed than before. Maybe it's the subtle curve of a chair back, or the soft material that gently molds to the shape of the body. There's a hint of that air-filled comfort in the way we sit today. It doesn't ask for attention, but like a forgotten song, its memory drifts quietly in the background, a soft echo of an era that never fully arrived. A small idea, unremarkable yet quietly compelling, simply waiting to be remembered, without urgency, without expectation. And maybe, just maybe, in some forgotten corner of an old office, there's still a single inflatable chair, sitting there, waiting for its moment. But the air is long gone, and the colors have softened, as though it too has learned to quietly fade into the backdrop of time. It simply waits, quietly, patiently. No longer needed, but still there, a remnant of an era that never fully embraced it, but felt its soft influence all the same. A small, unimportant piece of history, fading gently, like the last breath of a forgotten dream. In the quiet of an old library, hidden between the shelves, there once lived a peculiar collection. It wasn't of books or papers, but of beings that couldn't be seen, creatures of shadows and whispers, quietly catalogued in dusty, forgotten corners. Long ago, in the flicker of candlelight and the hum of paper turning, librarians kept careful records of strange things. Ghosts, spirits, and otherworldly creatures were not always treated with the dismissiveness we might expect today. Instead, they were carefully arranged, quietly marked with notes and sections, as though they too had a place in the world. These creatures, often of folklore or myth, were organized not by their eeriness, but by their characteristics. A spirit with a soft voice might be tucked beside one known for its noisy wails. A creature that moved silently was placed in a group with those that crept in the dark. These classifications were like quiet whispers between the pages. Some libraries even had entire sections dedicated to the supernatural, where ghosts weren't just stories but were grouped with creatures like dragons or fairies. The catalog was less about belief and more about understanding, trying to gently catalog the unknown as though it were simply another field of study. Without much thought, some librarians treated these supernatural beings like any other category, items in a list, names in a row. Each ghost was assigned its own title, some based on where it had been seen, others by the shape it took. There was no rush to explain them, only to arrange them as one might arrange flowers in a vase. Still, each entry was carefully measured. Some ghosts were mild, visiting with the lightest touch. Others, however, were wild and violent, their stories often left unfinished, with pages torn or smeared. It was as though these were the ones that would not stay still long enough to be fully understood. These creatures, once so carefully classified, would never be part of a textbook. They were always placed at the edges, hidden in soft corners where the light didn't quite reach. There in quiet darkness they waited to be read, but never fully seen, remaining a mystery just out of sight. Librarians themselves didn't always want to be near these creatures. It wasn't fear but a quiet respect. Some believed that to catalog something so strange was to invite it closer, a quiet superstition perhaps, but one that kept certain books from being touched too often. Yet the strange, quiet comfort of these books remained. Even when the libraries modernized, when GUI and digital systems arrived, these ghosts remained on the shelves, quietly waiting for someone to once again open the cover and peer into the murk of what had once been. Each page in these books was a soft invitation to believe, if only for a moment, that there was more to the world than we might understand. But nothing ever shouted, the words whispered, and the spirits remained a kind of quiet guest, politely lingering but never intruding. Sometimes in a forgotten corner, these beings would still be found. A librarian, perhaps lost in thought or lingering too long, would come upon a single book and pause, wondering if maybe it hadn't been placed in the right section after all. Perhaps it was time to reconsider where the ghosts truly belonged. Still, these creatures never quite left the shelves. Even now, in the quiet of a library, you might feel their presence, just beyond the edge of your thoughts. A lingering presence, soft and silent, never too close, never too far, waiting in the silence of pages that are never quite fully turned. The words in these books faded, as all things do. Libraries were renovated, sections were reorganized, and digital records began to take over. But the ghosts, always quiet, never demanded attention. They simply waited, as they had always done, unspoken, unseen, but always there, tucked into the past. In the dimmest corners, some of those old books are still found. Their spines cracked, their pages yellowed. They don't speak anymore, not with voices or words, but with the quiet suggestion that maybe there's still something to discover, something lingering between the lines. Even now, in the soft hush of a library late at night, if you listen closely, you might hear a faint rustle of paper, as if someone or something has just finished turning a page. It's only the quiet of a forgotten library, but sometimes it feels like a gentle reminder that some things, even in their silence, never truly leave. And as the last candle flickers out, the library returns to stillness. The ghosts remain, tucked between the pages, waiting. Just waiting, softly, patiently. Most people never notice it, but in nearly every grocery store, the music plays a quiet, rhythmic tune. It's not the same as the lively songs you might hear in a cafe or a restaurant. Instead, it's soft, steady, and almost comforting, blending into the background without ever demanding your attention. At first, you may not think much of it, but something in the way the music moves makes you feel it. It isn't random, not by any means. The rhythm is deliberate, guiding you through the aisles without you even realizing it. It's like an invisible hand, soft and steady, pushing you forward. The tempo is carefully chosen, not too fast, not too slow. It matches the natural pace of the store, the pace of shopping itself. When you step into a store, your rhythm is already set, but the music gives it a gentle nudge, coaxing you to move just a little bit slower, to wander a bit more. Quietly, it's tuned to the exact pace of your shopping. The beats subtly mirror the flow of customers, never pushing too hard, never making you rush. It's as though the store and the music are designed to move together, creating a soft, synchronized dance. Each note encourages another step, a little closer to the next item. Still, the music isn't the same in every section. The produce aisle feels a little more relaxed, with melodies that create calm. In the dairy section, the rhythm picks up just slightly, making you feel like you're in a hurry. Though it's not obvious, it's almost as if each part of the store has its own secret soundtrack. Without much thought, the music influences how long we linger in each aisle. You might find yourself slowing down just a bit as you pass through the fruits, or feeling a soft urge to pick up a snack when the music shifts. It's never overwhelming, never demanding, just gentle enough to pull you in. It's the kind of influence that doesn't ask for attention, but still shapes your actions. Each song plays a small part in your experience, guiding you like a soft whisper in your ear. It feels familiar, even though you rarely pay it any mind. It's always there, quietly coaxing you forward, gently shaping your choices. Even now, as you shop, you might not hear it consciously. The music is simply there, weaving in and out of your awareness. Sometimes it becomes part of the rhythm of your own thoughts, blending with the sounds of carts, footsteps, and voices in the distance. It's just enough to keep you in tune with the flow of the store. And yet the music isn't designed to catch your ear. It's not meant to be remembered. It's meant to fade into the background, like a subtle invitation to stay a little longer, to explore just a bit more. You might never question it, and that's just how it's meant to be. Quiet, unnoticed, but effective. When you leave the store, the music fades behind you, but maybe, just maybe, something about the rhythm lingers. You won't recall the exact song or note, but the quiet feeling it gave you might stay. A soft memory of the gentle pace that moved you through the aisles. The designers know this, of course. They choose the music to guide you without you realizing. It's a quiet trick, one that moves you without force, one that encourages just a little more shopping, just a little more time spent. It's not about the music itself, but how it becomes part of the store's larger rhythm. Still, it's not a loud influence. The music doesn't demand anything from you, doesn't try to catch your attention. It's simply there, helping you move through the space in its own soft way. You might notice it when you pause for a moment, but it never holds you. It always moves with you. There's no fanfare, no special effort to make you aware of it. The rhythm simply matches the pace of the store, matching your own. It's subtle, like the quiet hum of an old fan, or the soft rustle of leaves. It's just there, in the background, always a part of the experience, but never the focus. Even now, as the music quietly drifts behind the hum of the store, you may not be aware of how much it shaped your movements. It has nudged you through the aisles, guided your choices, and kept you in sync with the space. And yet, as soon as you leave, it fades away, as quietly as it arrived. The music's job is done, fading as the last step takes you out the door. You leave the store, and for a moment you might feel like something is missing. The rhythm has ended, but the soft traces of it still linger, waiting for the next time you enter a store, and the melody begins again, quietly guiding you once more. You've driven past them countless times, your eyes hardly noticing. The signs on the highway, those bold letters, those familiar shapes, but have you ever wondered why they seem so easy to read? Even when your mind is racing, when the world around you is a blur. Before the highway became a constant rush of cars, signs were designed differently, smaller, more intricate. People had time to read them, time to study each curve and angle, but as the roads grew faster, something had to change. There was no longer time for slow reading, no space for careful study, so designers started rethinking their work. They understood that drivers didn't have the luxury of lingering. They needed a font that could be read in a split second, one that could be understood while hands gripped the wheel tightly and eyes flicked nervously toward the road. The design had to speak quickly and clearly. Still, it wasn't just about speed, it was about calmness amidst chaos. The shapes of the letters needed to be simple, wide, and unmistakable. No frills, no complex curves, just solid, clear forms that could be seen, even when your mind wasn't focused entirely on them. The message had to be there, waiting, even in moments of panic. The width of the letters became important too. Wide, generous shapes gave more space for the eye to glide over them, without the need to linger. Even at 60 miles per hour, your brain could capture the full meaning of a sign without trying too hard, without overwhelming the senses. In fact, the shapes were made to feel solid, like they were meant to stand strong against the blur of motion. They weren't sharp or harsh, they were softened, just enough to guide the eye with comfort, not strain. It's as though the letters were designed to catch your gaze without demanding it, like a quiet invitation. The letters themselves don't call attention to their design. They are simple, almost humble in their appearance. But there's something about their presence, something calming, something trustworthy. They are there not to distract, but to ensure that, even in a rush, you'll always know where to go. And as you speed down the road, you might feel it, the gentle ease with which your eyes find the next sign. It's almost like the font understands the rhythm of the highway. It doesn't rush you, but gently whispers the direction you need, the information you need, without causing any disturbance in the flow. At night, these fonts don't fade. The reflective material used on them catches the light just enough to make the words visible, glowing softly against the darkened world. They aren't meant to shine bright or overpower the road. They just need to be seen when you need them, guiding you in quiet support. Sometimes, the simplicity of the letters feels almost like a secret, one you don't think about, but that quietly holds everything together. No one asks about the font. It doesn't require any praise or recognition. It simply does its job, gently, subtly, quietly. Every time you drive, you may not give them much thought, but there's something about the font's design that makes it almost invisible. It doesn't demand your attention. It just helps you find your way, silently, without effort. In fact, when you pause to think about it, you realize how much of your journey has been shaped by these fonts, by their design, by their quiet influence. Without ever saying a word, they keep you on course, helping you focus on the road, not on the details. These fonts don't change often. They stay the same, holding steady through years of highways and new cars. But they are far from static. Designers keep adjusting the shapes, making small tweaks, ensuring that they remain just as easy to read, just as gentle, even as the world around them changes. And so the highway fonts endure, softly evolving but always with the same purpose, to be there when you need them, to guide your gaze, to keep you safe. The road moves beneath you, the world shifts, but the font remains, quietly present, a subtle comfort in the rush of motion. Even as you speed away, leaving behind the familiar signs, the feeling of their steady presence lingers. They don't disappear. they simply wait. The next person will see them, will find comfort in their design, and keep moving forward, never questioning, never needing to. The highway's steady rhythm, its endless flow of motion, continues, but through it all, the fonts remain, soft, quiet, unchanging, just letters on a sign, guiding you gently, never demanding your attention, but always offering it when you need it most. You might have seen it before, perhaps in a museum or tucked away in a book, a small ancient piece of clay, worn with time, etched with tiny symbols. It doesn't call for attention, but if you stop and look closely, you might notice that it's not just a relic, it's a complaint. Long before emails or phone calls, there were letters of a different kind, not written on paper, but carved into stone or clay. They tell stories of frustrations, misunderstandings, and human nature unchanged by time. One such letter survives, quietly whispering its tale from ancient Mesopotamia. This tablet, older than most things we know, is often called the world's oldest known complaint letter. It's from a man named Nani, who in a moment of quiet anger sent his words to a merchant. The complaint was simple. His goods had not arrived, and he had waited too long. Still, this letter, small and unremarkable, speaks volumes. It tells of an ancient system of trade where promises were made and broken, just as they are today. The merchant, a man named Nasser, had failed to deliver what was promised, and Nani's patience had worn thin. The clay is heavy in the hand, its surface rough and worn. You can almost feel the weight of the words it carries, a message trapped in time. The cuneiform script, so carefully carved, whispers of frustration and a desire for fairness, yet there is something calm about it, almost resigned. Without much thought, you might dismiss the letter as nothing more than an ancient grumble. But there's something profound in its simplicity. The complaint was not just a plea for goods, but a small part of the everyday struggles of life. Even thousands of years ago, humans sought justice in the quietest of ways. Even now, the letter holds a peculiar sort of power. It exists as a symbol of human nature, unchanged over millennia. The details are lost to time, but the frustration, the need for a resolution, still echo in the silence of its words. We've all been there, waiting, hoping, wondering. The tablet, though ancient, is a soft reminder of how little time has changed us. The words of Nani were not unique, but rather a reflection of the shared experience of human life. People of all ages and backgrounds, from different corners of the world, have reached out in frustration, seeking fairness. The merchant's response, if there was one, has not survived. The tablet tells us nothing more than Nani's dissatisfaction, a moment of irritation preserved forever. Still, we can imagine the scene. Nani perhaps sitting under a palm tree or beside a fire, carving his grievance into the clay. The weight of the tablet is grounding, almost calming, as if it has lived through countless generations, silently holding its place in history. There's something soothing in knowing that our most basic emotions have persisted through time: anger, frustration, and the quiet need to be heard. You might wonder how many others sent complaints like this. How many letters were written, lost to the sands of time, their voices never reaching us. The ones that never made it into history, simply fading away, unnoticed and forgotten. Yet this one survives, quietly reminding us of our shared past. Still, there's something gentle about the way the clay holds the words. The letter is not loud or dramatic, it doesn't demand attention. It simply sits there, waiting for someone to notice, to read, to understand. Maybe it will be remembered, maybe not, but it remains quietly in the background. The tablet's existence is a soft echo of the past, like a forgotten melody that reappears when you least expect it. Nani's complaint isn't just a letter, it's a fragment of life itself, a small piece of history that reminds us that people, in their own quiet ways, have always been the same. It's hard to imagine a time when complaints were written on clay, carved with sharp instruments instead of typed on glowing screens. Yet in some way it's the same, a human frustrated, seeking resolution, hoping for fairness. Even now we find ourselves writing our own complaints, in much the same way. And yet this small tablet, in its quiet stillness, doesn't ask for a resolution. It simply waits. The words, though filled with dissatisfaction, remain calm, almost gentle in their simplicity. There's no grand flourish, no call for attention, just the soft, persistent echo of one person's small request for justice. The tablet is not dramatic. It doesn't shout or cry out. It simply exists, a faint mark in the timeline, unnoticed by many, but forever holding a place in history. It's a reminder that sometimes, even our smallest actions can last longer than we ever intend. Even now, as the night deepens and the world grows quiet, the letter remains. It's there, waiting, a small voice from an ancient time. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, or maybe it will fade again, quietly, until someone else, years from now, feels the quiet pull of its ancient frustration. In the stillness of its existence, the letter simply waits, no urgency, no hurry, just a quiet whisper from the past, gently asking, why, and then, just as quietly, fading into the silence once more. A gentle circle, almost a target, once rested quietly on boxes of chewing gum. It didn't blink or buzz, it didn't speak, but for a brief moment, it nearly became the way we understood every product we touch. A soft bullseye, silent and precise, waiting to change everything. Long before scanners flickered at checkout lines, stores worked by memory, by numbers scribbled in pencil, by fingers pressing dusty cash register keys. Each item had to be known by sight, counted, priced, remembered, quiet, clumsy routines, repeated 100 times each day. Then someone wondered, what if a machine could do the remembering instead? A gentle idea, quietly powerful. But machines don't see like we do. They needed symbols, they needed shapes, they needed a language written, not in words but in lines, and so the first designs arrived. Not as the stripes we know now, but as circles, thick and thin rings, drawn like ripples on water. A bullseye, but not for aiming, one for reading. For translating silence into code, softly and instantly. It was clean, beautiful, even. A quiet spiral of information, pressed onto labels, calm and contained. It didn't shout. It didn't clutter. It simply sat, centered and certain, waiting to be read. It nearly became the way we saw the future. Still, the machines struggled. Their eyes couldn't always find the center. The rings confused them when printed small, or when tilted slightly. A bullseye, once full of promise, suddenly felt uncertain, too delicate for the sharp rhythm of a grocery line. So the circle unraveled, not all at once but slowly, its rings stretched into lines, straight, solid bars, marching left to right, easier to scan, easier to print. The bullseye faded quietly into history, replaced by stripes that whispered instead of spun. Even now, it's strange to think how close we came to seeing circles everywhere. On cereal boxes and shampoo bottles, on frozen peas and paperback books. Not stripes, but soft targets, resting gently on the corners of our everyday lives. The first item ever scanned, a pack of chewing gum, was marked not by a bullseye, but by its newer, straighter cousin. But still, somewhere in the quiet breath before that beep, the ghost of the circle lingered, just for a moment. Designers kept the memory close. Some early barcodes held hints of curves, soft arches beneath the bars, echoes of the bullseye that almost was. Like a dream nearly remembered, half-shaped and fading, but never entirely gone. And in forgotten corners, old design books, museum drawers, dusty patent shelves, the circle still waits, still perfect, still symmetrical. A shape that never demanded to win, but held its ground for a while, quietly hopeful. Children drawing targets, artists sketching spirals, potters turning clay into round forms. The bullseye shape lives everywhere else, just not where it almost mattered most, not on boxes or bottles. Not in checkout aisles, not in our hands. Still, that gentle symbol had something the bars never quite captured. A kind of softness, a whisper of balance, the feeling of something centered and still. No direction, no urgency, just a quiet point of rest. Even now, barcodes stretch across nearly everything. Cold and mechanical, sharp and certain, but their rhythm feels different than what might have been. Less poetic, more precise, less like a quiet pond, more like a fence. And yet, in the quiet hum of a late-night grocery store, under soft fluorescent lights, it's easy to imagine it, the bullseye, resting on the corner of a box, blinking gently in the scanner's red glow. It would have felt different, maybe, softer to look at. Quieter in its presence, not lines rushing forward, but circles softly holding their place, never pushing, never chasing, just staying still. Without much thought, we now accept the stripes. We don't ask what came before. We don't wonder what was nearly chosen. But the circles, the gentle rings, they remember, they don't ask for attention. They simply wait, tucked into old pages and quiet patents. A shape that once reached for the future, and almost held it. And in that small almost, there's a softness, a story left in the shape of a ripple, still drifting outwards, even now. A brass circle, warm from the afternoon sun, rests quietly beneath your hand. You don't notice its height, you never really have, but it's always the same, on doors in kitchens, in offices, in waiting rooms. Each one placed just so, as though the whole world quietly agreed. It wasn't always like this. Once doors opened in all kinds of ways. Some with latches near your knees, others with knobs up by your shoulder. There was no shared rule, no quiet rhythm, just door after door, each one asking for a different gesture. In those early years, people built for themselves. A door was measured to the builder, the house, the moment. Taller people made higher knobs. Cottages had them low, closer to the waist. Quiet choices, made without discussion, each one slightly different from the next. Still, as cities grew and buildings rose, something began to change. People moved more often. They stayed in hotels. They walked through offices, shops, schools, and every unfamiliar door became a small puzzle, slowing them down, asking too much. It was around then, quietly and without fanfare, that standards began to appear. Not laws at first, just soft agreements. Builders spoke, architects nodded, somewhere around 36 inches, just about elbow height, not too low, not too high. A small comfort for a busy world, and so the pattern spread. Across oceans and sidewalks, doors began to look alike. Different wood, different paint, but the knob, always where your hand expects it. Quietly there, unchanging. A kind of agreement the world doesn't talk about. Even now, if you close your eyes and reach for a doorknob, your arm knows where to go. Your shoulder shifts, your hand rises. It's a learned movement, shaped by years of soft repetition. A dance you've done so often, you forgot you were dancing. Sometimes, in older towns or forgotten buildings, a door surprises you. The knob too low, too high, off to one side, just wrong enough to notice. And for a moment, you're awake again, remembering that most doors don't place themselves. Children learn by reaching. Toddlers stretch upward, fingertips grazing the knob. It's one of the first silent goals, a measure of growth, until one day, without fanfare, they open the door on their own. A soft milestone, unspoken but felt. Knobs themselves change too. Once glass, then brass, then steel, round, then levered, but always returning to the same place. As if the hand's memory matters more than the shape. As if location is the language, and the knob just whispers its part. Some countries drifted slightly, centimeters here, inches there, but even across borders, the differences are small. You can walk from country to country, city to city, and never once pause to find a doorknob. It's already where you're reaching. Builders use quiet tools, levels, rulers, chalk lines. They mark the door, drill the hole, fit the latch. It takes only minutes. But the result lasts years, decades, sometimes longer than the people who placed it. Doors with no knobs still follow the rule. Sliding panels, push plates, sensor-activated glass, each one designed around the same familiar height, even if your hand never quite touches anything. Still, your body knows. The height became a kind of promise, a signal that you belong here, that this place understands how tall you are, where your arm bends, what gesture you'll make. It's a kind of hospitality built into the frame. Without ever saying so, doorknob placement tells a story about trust. We expect consistency. We find comfort in things being where they should be. And so, without notice, the world quietly shaped itself around our reach. Not everyone agrees, of course. Some designs drift, some artists place knobs where they feel right, not where they're expected, but even then, the hand hesitates. It reaches back to the old spot, just in case. You might walk through dozens of doors each day and never think of them. Each one offering a gentle, expected motion, turn, pull, step through. A pattern so soft, it almost disappears. Still, that brass circle waits, right where it should be, and your hand, without asking, meets it. The gesture is old now, familiar, a quiet agreement between you and the room beyond, and then you're through. You let go. The knob rests again in its silent place, unchanged, unneeded, until the next hand reaches, already knowing where it will land. A quiet circle of metal, worn smooth at the edges, a coin that carries a hole, as though something once passed through and never came back. You might hold it without thinking, but once you notice the gap, it's hard to forget it's there. Even now in Japan, Denmark and Norway, a few coins still carry this silent absence. A hole, neat and round, where the metal opens up like an eyelid mid-blink. It doesn't change how the coin feels, light, cool, familiar, but it changes how it lingers in the hand. Long ago, coins were more than just value. They were shape, weight, texture, a message from a place or a ruler. Some bore faces, others had animals. But coins with holes quietly suggested something else. They were meant to be carried together, strung like beads or charms. In the markets of centuries past, traders threaded coins onto cords, a rope of money, tied at the waist or tucked beneath cloth. The hole wasn't decoration. It was a kind of memory, of movement, of fingers, of time passing slowly as each coin slid past the next. Still, not every country chose this. Many coins stayed solid, whole, complete. But in some places, the whole offered more than ease. It offered identity, a soft way of saying, this is ours, this is different, you will know it by touch alone. Touch became important. In crowded pockets, the whole made the coin easy to find. Elderly hands, shaking or blind, could tell by feel, a soft glide of finger into the center. The whole told them where they were, without the need to look. Over time, machines arrived. Vending machines, subway gates, laundry slots. Most coins vanished into smooth, solid discs, ready to be scanned and sorted, but some holes remained, quietly insisting on their place in a changing world. In Japan, the 5-yen coin is still sacred in its way. It carries a hole, a shimmer of bronze, and a whisper of good luck. Often offered at shrines, left in silence beside folded hands and drifting prayers. The hole, perhaps, lets the wish pass through. In Denmark, the crone with its hollow center feels almost nautical, like something found in the folds of a sailor's coat, marked by wind and salt and the long hush of the sea. A coin that remembers anchors, maybe, or knots tied carefully in rope. There's something softly human about it. A coin with a hole is imperfect by design. It's missing something, and yet more whole because of it. You can see through it, hold it up to the light, let the sun pour through, as if time itself had worn it down. Even children notice. A coin like that becomes a plaything, a necklace, a makeshift lens. They hold it to their eye and peek through, imagining another world beyond the metal ring. A portal, quietly humming in the palm. Collectors speak softly about coins with holes. They're not always the rarest, but they carry stories differently. Not just dates and figures, but purpose. Decisions made long ago by people thinking not just of spending, but of holding, wearing, keeping close. Sometimes, the hole is meant to save metal. In war or hardship, when resources thin, cutting out the center means every coin takes just a little less from the earth. A gentle economy, invisible to most, but present in every gap. Still, some holes are just tradition. The world changes, but not everything has to. A hole remains not because it must, but because it feels right. It's known, familiar, it asks nothing, and still, it's remembered. Even now, as digital numbers dance behind glass screens, these coins continue to pass hand to hand, through shops, into pockets, along quiet mornings at the market. Their centers still open, their purpose still quiet. No one stops to count how many holes have passed through history, or how many fingers have drifted across them, half aware, absent-minded, comforted by their shape. The coins ask nothing, they simply wait, and maybe tonight, if a coin like that finds its way to your palm, you'll hold it a moment longer. Let your finger drift to the center, feel the absence, the space where something could be, or maybe already was. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. A single wooden shape rises at the edge of a clearing. From far away, it looks like any other tree, slim, pointed, quiet. But step closer, and it does not move with the wind. Its bark does not crack or flake. Its silence is not natural. It is something else entirely. In the quiet years after a war had ended, nations looked inward. The air was still, but not calm. Along the Swiss border, the land stretched wide and open, flanked by hills and watchful ridgelines. There, tucked between true trees, something else began to appear. They were hollow, made of steel and wood, shaped to mimic pine, painted by hand. Each one held the color of moss, the texture of bark, the outline of a tree, just tall enough to blend in. From a distance, they disappeared. That was their gift. Inside, the walls were smooth and narrow. A small platform, a hidden ladder, tiny slits for eyes to look through. Sometimes a radio, sometimes just silence. One person at a time, breathing softly, watching a world that had no idea it was being watched. Still, they weren't meant to last. Most of these trees were temporary, tools for a time of quiet suspicion. They stood only as long as they needed to, just long enough to see what others might not want seen. Then they vanished, as if they'd never been there at all. A few stayed longer, forgotten, or simply left behind. Their wood grew soft with rain, paint peeled, the green fading into a dull, tired gray. Birds began to rest on their limbs, moss grew over the edges, the line between what was real and what was not began to blur. If you walked near one, you might not notice anything strange. But if your hand brushed its side, the temperature might feel wrong, colder than bark, smoother in places, too perfect in its pattern. A silence that wasn't the silence of a tree. The Swiss never made many of them, only enough to cover the right views, the quiet paths where someone might try to slip through unnoticed, each one built not for beauty, but for patience, not to move but to stay. Some had small benches inside, just wide enough for a soldier to sit, others only had space to stand. In winter, the cold pressed through the walls. In summer, the heat clung to the wood. But still, they stayed inside, quiet and waiting, hidden in plain sight. Even now, some of these trees remain, forgotten in forests that have grown thicker, paths that no longer matter. They have become part of the landscape, too strange to be noticed, too ordinary to invite questions. Just another shape among the pines. Their presence feels like a memory that doesn't belong to you, a remnant of someone else's watchfulness. Something left behind by a world that was careful, alert, but quiet about its concerns. You might imagine what it felt like inside one. The wooden walls pressing close, the view just barely framed by thin slots. Every sound muffled, every movement measured. A full day spent inside a tree that was never meant to grow. People rarely speak of them now. There are no plaques, no signs, just stories passed quietly. The kind told slowly, with long pauses between the words. A tree that wasn't a tree, a lookout that never moved. No one builds them anymore. Modern borders are different, louder, clearer, more visible. These trees belong to a gentler kind of watchfulness, one that relied on stillness, on blending in, on trusting that those passing by would never look too closely. Sometimes hikers find them, a rusted hinge, a hollow sound where bark should be, a ladder leading nowhere, but even then the tree doesn't explain itself. It stands the same way it always did, present but quiet, seen but not understood. They don't ask for attention. They don't offer clues, just a shape, waiting. The forest grows around them, and time pulls gently at their corners, softly erasing their outlines, blending them back into the earth. And if you ever come across one, you might pause for a moment, not knowing why. Something will feel slightly off. Then the wind will move again, and the stillness will return, and the tree will remain, just watching, just waiting, quietly unchanged. Near the bottom of a soft serve cone, there's a quiet pattern you might not notice at first. A faint grid, a subtle spiral, or a tucked fold near the tip. It feels like decoration, maybe just texture, but these tiny shapes follow rules, gently hidden in plain sight. Before ice cream ever met its cone, people ate it from glass dishes, passed gently across counters by hand. It was a slower ritual, delicate and neat. Then someone had the quiet thought, what if the dish could be eaten too? A soft whisper of convenience, gently crisped. The first cones were uneven. Some curled like scrolls, others folded like paper fans. Their shapes varied with the maker's hands. 1,000 soft guesses at how to hold a scoop just long enough. Nothing was exact, but people didn't mind. They melted and dripped, and that was part of the fun. Still, over time, the cones began to settle into 3 gentle categories: cake cones, sugar cones, and waffle cones, each with their own quiet design language. Not officially named, not enforced, but like snowflakes falling into types, the differences became soft standards, quietly recognized. Cake cones are the lightest. Their sides are straight, their texture smooth. They feel almost hollow when held, like they might crumble with a breath. But they don't. They wait patiently for their scoop, then hold it, gently but firmly, until the last bite disappears. Sugar cones are darker, stronger, a little shinier. Their sides taper inward like an upside-down bell. They crack with a soft snap, never too sharp. Some have ridges, faint rings pressed into the dough before baking. You can trace them with a fingertip, one loop at a time. Waffle cones speak loudest, but still in a whisper. Their golden walls are wide and open, folded with careful purpose. Each grid is a map of the iron that pressed it. No two are exactly alike. They smell faintly of vanilla, even before the ice cream settles in. Even now, factories shape cones using gentle molds and quiet measurements. Tiny variations in flour, heat, or time can change the outcome. A little too long in the oven, and the cone becomes brittle. A little too short, and it's too soft to stand. Some cones are given collars, small ridged rings near the top, not for beauty, but to catch drips. Others get tiny vents underneath, meant to stop air from getting trapped as the ice cream settles. Little tricks, hidden in design, quietly keeping things from falling apart. Cones are rarely labeled by name. Shops don't announce the type, you just choose by feel, or by memory. The flat-bottomed kind, the crunchy kind, the one with the little curl at the top. Somehow, that's always enough. Still, in quiet corners of warehouses and guidebooks, the shapes have soft codes, size numbers, angle grades, rim designs, nothing dramatic, just a quiet agreement behind the scenes. A soft language spoken only by bakers, packers, and machines. Sometimes, specialty cones are made, heart-shaped, double-barreled, or coated gently in chocolate. But even then, they echo the quiet patterns of the 3 originals. A foundation that's rarely noticed, but always felt. Kids often bite the tip first, letting the ice cream drip through like a funnel. Adults usually start from the top, turning the cone slowly as it disappears. Everyone has their own way, but the cone adapts, never protesting, always giving until the end. If you press gently on the side of a sugar cone, you might hear a soft crackle. Not a break, just a whisper of tension in the layers. A quiet promise that it's holding strong. For now, cones are sold by the thousands, stacked one inside the next, like soft spirals of possibility. Each one waiting to be chosen, filled, and forgotten. But for a short time, they're part of something sweet, and they never ask for more than that. Even broken cones are often saved, crushed for toppings, reused in recipes, their curves and corners still useful, even after their shape is gone. Like gentle remnants of something once whole, still offering joy in smaller pieces, they are never the star of the show. But without them, something feels missing. A scoop on a plate is lovely. A scoop in a cone feels like summer, like childhood, like the feeling of holding something delicate that you're allowed to devour. Still, they wait in quiet boxes, sleeves of them, hidden behind counters, beneath metal bins, inside forgotten cabinets. The shapes don't change much. They don't need to. They were always enough, just as they are. And tomorrow they'll be there again, stacked and ready. Quiet patterns, soft edges, patient forms, waiting to be filled, waiting to be held, and then, slowly, disappearing. A narrow breeze lifts a corner of fabric, just enough to catch the light. The red is soft, almost dusty. The blue darker than you'd expect. And in the middle of that careful balance, a question: why these colors? Why this shade? And why, sometimes, do they quietly shift? Long ago, when nations were new and declarations freshly inked, flags were made by hand, each color mixed from earth and metal, plant and shell, a red pulled from crushed beetles, a blue from lapis ground to dust. Every hue had a weight to it, both in meaning and in cost. Some pigments were easy, others came only from far away across sea or desert. A rare blue could cost more than gold. Red could fade to pink or brown or vanish in the sun. Still, the flag had to fly. Even if the color wasn't quite right, it had to mean the same thing. So nations made quiet compromises. If indigo ran short, they turned to charcoal. If crimson grew too dear, they borrowed brick. And yet the flags still fluttered, still waved, still stood for something, though the shades said it softly, in tones not quite true. In wartime, the shortages grew sharper. Blue dye once used for uniforms vanished. Factories turned to simpler mixes. Flags came off the line duller, flatter, but still sewn with care. No one said it out loud, but you could feel the shift in every faded stripe. Some governments quietly adjusted the recipes, a little more black in the green, a little less red in the red. They called it tradition, but it was really necessity. And still the flags flew, even when the meaning got diluted or the sky behind them looked too gray. Over time, pigments changed again. Chemical dyes replaced natural ones. Colors grew brighter, then harsher. Flags grew louder, less prone to fading, but sometimes less gentle too. Something about them started to feel more permanent, less like fabric, more like command. Still, not every country made the same switch. In some places, old recipes held on. You can see it now, if you look. One nation's red is sharp and cold. Another's is warm and heavy, almost brown, not by choice, but by inheritance. Even the same flag can shift, softly, depending on where it's made. A government copy might look bold. A roadside version, washed out. The thread might bleed. The white might gray. The blue might sink into navy, almost lost. Collectors sometimes whisper about the rare versions, the early batches, the wrong dyes, the ones made during embargo or war. They hold them like strange flowers, delicate, temporary. You can almost feel the history still clinging to the cloth. Not quite right. Not quite wrong. In some cases, the changes become official. A new standard published quietly. A slightly richer green, a yellow more like gold. The people rarely notice, but the flag knows. The flag remembers. There are stories of flags that arrived, faded before they even flew, shipped too far, stored too long, or stitched with the wrong thread. They still got raised. They still carried weight. Sometimes they meant even more, because they looked like they'd already survived something. Even today, not all flags match. You might see 3 versions at the same intersection, each one a little off, each one insisting it's the real one, but none of them exactly the same. Just different voices saying the same word. And then there's the quiet choice to never fix the colors at all, to let them drift with the dyes, with the years, with the weather, a living symbol. Soft changing. Still true enough. Sometimes, someone will ask which color is correct, but there is no one answer. Only stories told in fabric, shaped by pigment and time. A message that adapts, even when we wish it wouldn't, even when we think it shouldn't. Still, the flags are raised, still they wave, and still they speak. Not in words, not in shouts, but in quiet shades of maybe, and almost in near enough. And then the wind stills. The fabric stops, and the colors wait. Faint and steady, for the next breeze to bring them back to life. A low hum settles in, just under the sound of voices, not loud, not sharp, just there, like a blanket stretched too thin to see. Somewhere above the clouds, a soft fuzz plays quietly, steady and slow, barely noticed. But once you hear it, it never quite disappears. There was a time when flying felt like magic, but magic can be frightening. In the early years of air travel, passengers were uneasy, tense hands, clenched jaws, wide eyes watching the wings. The sky was too quiet, too open, silence had weight up there, and that silence made people nervous. So someone added sound, not music, not chatter, but something gentle and aimless. A soft wash of static, just enough to keep the silence from creeping in. Not loud enough to notice, not quiet enough to forget. Something in between. Something to settle the air around you. It wasn't real static. It was made, designed, tuned like a whisper, shaped to feel warm and familiar. A sound with no words, no rhythm, no point, just presence. It filled the cabin like soft rain on windows, like wind in the trees. It said everything is fine. Early versions were rough, pulled from real radio interference, but engineers noticed those sounds had edges, the kind that startled or scratched at your ears, so they smoothed the noise, softened the grain. They made a version of static that didn't surprise you, a sound that stayed still. It came from small speakers tucked into the corners of the plane. It hummed from above your seat and behind your knees. It didn't ask for attention, but it wrapped around you like breath. It turned the cabin into a kind of low sky itself, constant and distant and dull. Flight attendants knew. They called it different things. Air hum, cabin tone, noise blanket, but they knew it helped. Fewer restless fingers, fewer sudden movements, a steadying sound that masked the engine groans and air bumps. It kept worry just out of reach. Even now modern planes use something like it. Not quite static anymore, but a crafted sound. Engineers mix frequencies that human ears find calming. Some rise just high enough to mimic a quiet room. Others dip low, like a hum in your chest. Together they smooth the edge of flight. Pilots hear a version too, in their headsets. A tailored silence, threaded with soft hiss. Not silence exactly, but the suggestion of it. It helps them stay focused, helps them breathe slower. The sound is neutral, steady, like a straight horizon line. On some flights, the sound is a little warmer. On others it's cooler, more mechanical. Airlines test these tones, just like seat fabrics or coffee blends. They ask, does it feel safe? Does it feel clean? Does it feel like something you've heard before? Even if you haven't. The hum changes with altitude, though most people never notice. As pressure shifts and engines fade in and out, the soft static bends with them. It's always there, adjusting itself like a gentle co-pilot you never meet. One who never sleeps. In older planes, you could sometimes hear the edges fray. A little buzz when the lights flickered. A sharp hiss if the speaker loosened. Even those moments felt oddly comforting, like hearing an old radio in another room, not quite tuned, not quite off. Children sometimes asked about it. What is that noise? Where is it coming from? Parents didn't always have an answer. They'd say, it's just the plane, just what planes sound like. And in a way that was true. It was the plane. Or at least, part of how it felt. Long flights became easier with it. It helped passengers sleep, helped them not notice the time passing. It filled in the emptiness between meals and movies. It softened the moments when there was nothing to do, nowhere to go, only waiting, only altitude. Somewhere between noise and silence, that sound built a small room inside the sky. A room with no walls, no windows, only softness, a place to breathe a little slower, a sound to rest inside. You might never think about it, but if you've flown, you've heard it, and part of you probably remembers it. Even now maybe, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it again. That soft, steady wash. No beginning, no end, still humming above clouds, still keeping time at 30,000 feet. It doesn't say anything, but it stays. Just in case. Just in case. Sometimes, just before the rain, the air feels different. You might pause on the porch or by a window, and there it is, a soft, earthy scent rising up from nowhere. It doesn't last long, just enough to make you close your eyes and breathe it in. This smell has a name, though few ever use it. It drifts in quietly, gentle, and strange. Some call it the smell of rain, but it's not the rain itself. It comes before the drops arrive, as if the earth is preparing for something, softly sighing beneath the sky. Long ago, scientists tried to measure this scent. They gave it a name, simple, odd, almost made-up sounding. But the goal wasn't to explain it away. They only wanted to understand how the air could carry such a memory, and why it always felt like something more than just a smell. In the 1960s, researchers worked with glass tubes and dusty rocks, trying to trap the scent. They baked old soil in ovens, captured the air that rose from it, and studied the oils hidden within. The work was quiet, detailed, slow, almost like catching shadows in jars. They learned that dry soil holds onto secrets. When it hasn't rained in a while, tiny oils from plants build up in the dust. They sit silently, clinging to rocks and roots, waiting. Then, when the first raindrops hit, those oils lift into the air. Not all at once, but gently. One of those oils comes from bacteria living in the dirt. It sounds odd, but it's everywhere, harmless, ancient, patient. When the rain touches it, the scent wakes up. Some describe it as clean, some as sweet, some just say it smells like home. But it's always familiar. This scent doesn't have a single shape. It changes with the ground beneath it. In cities, it smells different than in forests. On concrete, it fades quickly. On dry leaves, it lingers longer. Still, wherever it appears, it wraps around the moment, pulling us into quiet memory. People tried to recreate this smell in bottles. Scientists named the scent, bottled it, mapped its molecules. But even in a lab, with everything controlled, it never felt quite the same. Something was always missing, maybe the hush of the sky, or the stillness just before the storm. Even now, perfumers try. They mix oils and extracts to build something close. Some add moss, or clay, or dusty rose. Others chase the mineral scent of stones, washed clean. But the true rain smell is softer than perfume. More patient, it waits in silence, then disappears. It never announces itself. One moment you're walking, thinking about something else entirely. Then it drifts in, quiet and low. And you notice, you stop. Maybe you smile, maybe you say nothing at all. The scent says enough on its own, without asking for attention. In some places, this smell comes with storms. In others just with morning dew. Farmers notice it early, animals too. It's like a signal from the ground to the sky, or maybe the other way around. A kind of hidden conversation, spoken in scent. People have tried to study how the smell travels. It's not just blown around, It's carried on tiny air bubbles that rise when raindrops hit the ground. They pop gently, one by one, releasing the scent like a quiet breath from the earth. Still, we rarely talk about it. It's one of those things we all know but don't name. Like the hush in a library, or the warmth of laundry just out of the dryer. A detail so small, it becomes part of the background, unnoticed until it's gone. Children sometimes notice it more than adults. They'll say the rain smells funny, or that the ground smells like pencils or rocks. They don't know the word for it, but they feel it just the same. New, strange, and somehow comforting. Writers have tried to describe it, painters too, but it's hard to catch. It's always between things, between dry and wet, between now and soon. It slips through metaphors, brushes past language. Some things just have to be smelled, not explained. You might find it strongest after a dry spell. When the rain has waited days, maybe weeks, the first drops hit the road or the field or your own backyard, and the smell rises like steam, slow and ghost-like. Not loud, not sharp, just present. Even indoors, you can sometimes catch it, through a cracked window, through an open door. It drifts in with the wind, mixes with the quiet of the room. You pause, notice it, maybe hold your breath for a second longer than usual. It never stays. The smell fades almost as soon as it arrives. Like a memory slipping back into the dark. It doesn't ask questions, doesn't wait for thanks. It simply leaves, soft-footed, quiet as the rain that follows. A single droplet clings to the edge of the faucet, waiting. The room is still, filled with soft echoes of water, long gone. Somewhere above, a silver coil hangs, coiled like a resting serpent, waiting to be lifted, aimed, and trusted. Before it moved, it didn't. Showers were once fixed in place, as still as statues. Water rained from a single point, predictable, unmoving. You stepped in, braced for the first cold hit, then stood still as the warmth found you. There was no reaching, no guiding, just standing. Bathrooms were simpler then. Cold tiles, a metal tap, and the faint scent of soap. To bathe was to stand beneath something you could not change, letting it fall where it wanted. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't thoughtful. Water came from above and did as it pleased, but quietly, someone thought about bending that rule. Not for luxury, not for beauty, just for ease. In a small corner of design, someone wondered if the water could follow us, if it could be guided, like a soft brushstroke, across the skin. They imagined water with direction. The first designs weren't graceful, heavy hoses, clunky nozzles, pieces borrowed from garden tools and kitchen sinks. They dripped, clanked, and sputtered, but they moved, and movement, even awkward, felt like freedom. Now water could go where you asked it to, shoulders, feet, hands, a little control, quietly gained. Still, the hose was the heart of it all. Coiled, flexible, a small marvel of shape and patience. It curled up gently when not in use, like a sleeping vine. It had to be strong, but yielding, solid yet soft to the touch, metal wrapped over rubber, whispering purpose. Even now, most people don't think about the hose. It just waits, looped behind the curtain, or hanging gently in its cradle. But its presence has changed everything. You no longer stand still beneath the water. Now the water waits for you, follows you, listens. The head itself evolved slowly too. At first it was simple, a rounded spray, a few steady holes, but later, designers gave it options. Mist, massage, trickle, full, quiet variations, each with their own sound, their own feel. A soft rain for thought, a firm stream for waking. In hotels and quiet homes, you might see the head resting in its bracket, unmoving, but not fixed. A guest reaches for it gently. Unsure if it lifts, it always does. And with that movement, a quiet agreement begins. Your hand guides, and water obeys. Children play with it, directing sprays at tiled walls, laughing at the way water dances where they point. It becomes a toy, a discovery, a tool, not just for cleaning, but for curiosity. A new shape of play, born from an old idea, softened by water. In nursing homes and hospitals, the hand shower becomes more than a convenience. It's a gentle kindness, a way to bathe without lifting, to clean without cold. It rests softly in the hands of caregivers, moving with care, easing difficult moments with quiet grace. And still, some people never use it. It hangs unused, always returned to its cradle. Maybe it's too strange, too loose, too different from what was once fixed, but it waits all the same, ready to follow should you ever reach for it. Materials changed with time. What was once metal became plastic, then chrome-plated blends of both, lightweight, easy to clean, resistant to mold, but always coiled, always looped. The hose remains a shape we recognize, even when its skin changes. Even the sound of it is soft, the hush of water through the flexible line, the light knock of the nozzle against the tile, the shift of droplets from one spray pattern to another, sounds that belong to the steam and the silence. In some homes, the hose is short, barely reaching the knees. In others, it stretches far, almost too far. Each length tells a quiet story about the person who chose it, how they move, what they need, how they bathe. Sometimes the shower head slips from its holder, falling with a gentle thud. It startles, but only for a moment. It's not broken, just resting differently now, waiting for the next hand to lift it again. And when it's not used, the hose becomes a line of rest, a gentle arc draped along a wall, glistening slightly in the leftover steam. It doesn't demand, it simply exists, ready to move or stay, a quiet invention that made water feel closer. No one celebrates it, no one marks the day it arrived, but the detachable showerhead quietly changed how we begin and end our days. A small grace, offered in chrome and coil, gently making something essential feel just a little more human. And now, as the faucet tightens and the last drop slips into silence, the hose hangs again, still and content. The bathroom is quiet, steam drifts softly to the ceiling. And somewhere beneath it all, a small invention waits, silver and patient, gently coiled in sleep. You've walked through them hundreds of times, those quiet spaces between floors where escalators slowly carry people up and down. But perhaps you've never quite noticed how rarely these moving staircases line up directly across from each other. They stand offset, slightly misaligned, as if engaged in a gentle, endless dance of avoidance. Long before modern malls existed, department stores began installing escalators to move shoppers between floors. These early moving staircases were wonders of their time, slowly carrying customers upward in a continuous flow. Store owners quickly noticed something interesting about how people moved when riding these mechanical paths. When shoppers reached the end of an escalator, they often paused briefly, looking around to get their bearings before continuing on. This small moment of hesitation created a gentle bottleneck, a quiet gathering of people, momentarily unsure where to go next. The space needed for this pause wasn't initially considered important. As more escalators appeared in more buildings, designers began paying attention to these pauses. They watched how people flowed through spaces, noting the subtle patterns of movement. They saw that when escalators faced each other directly, the two streams of people would softly collide, creating gentle confusion. Without much thought, shoppers stepping off one escalator would walk straight ahead, directly into the path of those approaching the opposite one. This natural tendency to continue moving forward created a quiet problem that needed solving. The solution was simple but thoughtful: offsetting the escalators. By placing up and down escalators at angles to each other, or separating them with a bit of distance, the streams of people would naturally curve away from each other. Like water flowing around stones in a stream, shoppers would find their way without thinking, guided by the gentle architecture of the space. Even now, mall designers consider these movements carefully. They create what they call landing zones, open areas at the top and bottom of each escalator where people can safely pause and reorient themselves. These spaces need to be just right, not too small, not unnecessarily large. Still, there's another quiet reason for this misalignment. When escalators are offset or placed at angles, shoppers must walk further through the store. This gentle encouragement to move creates more opportunities to notice displays, to glance at products, to be tempted by items never considered before. In older buildings, the placement sometimes came from necessity. Escalators are heavy, requiring strong structural support beneath them. Sometimes, the building simply couldn't bear the weight of two parallel escalators in the same spot, so they were gently shifted apart, finding separate paths through the floors. The mechanics themselves contribute to this arrangement too. Inside each escalator, hidden from view, complex machinery pulls the steps in their endless loop. These mechanisms need space, room to breathe and work. Placing escalators side by side would demand more room than many buildings could provide. Sometimes, the misalignment serves as a quiet wayfinding tool. By placing escalators at different points, designers create landmarks, gentle reference points that help shoppers remember their path. Turn left at the up escalator, they might think, without really forming the words. In multi-level malls, this offsetting creates a subtle journey. As you travel from floor to floor, you move horizontally as well as vertically, experiencing more of the space without effort. It's a quiet choreography, guiding you through the building in a soft spiral pattern. Quietly too, this arrangement prevents another problem. When escalators align directly, people looking down or up can feel a strange vertigo, a gentle disorientation from seeing multiple levels simultaneously. The offset breaks this visual connection, making the journey feel calmer, less overwhelming. Even in the noise and bustle of a busy shopping center, these design choices work silently. They require no signs or instructions, no arrows or announcements. They simply guide through suggestion, through the gentle nudging of architecture, through spaces that feel natural to move through. The materials themselves add to this quiet guidance. The flooring often changes subtly near escalators, perhaps becoming slightly darker or changing pattern. These gentle transitions help prepare you for the upcoming shift from walking to standing, a subtle preparation your feet might notice before your mind does. Children seem to understand this dance instinctively. They run toward escalators with excitement, then pause at just the right moment, sensing the boundary where solid ground gives way to moving steps. They feel the gentle push and pull of these spaces, responding to cues adults often miss. Even the sound changes as you approach, the soft, continuous hum of motors, the quiet clicking of steps emerging and disappearing. These sounds create an auditory landmark, gently announcing the transition point before you see it, preparing you subconsciously for the change in movement. Through decades of watching how people move, these designs have evolved. Early department stores might have placed escalators wherever convenient, but modern spaces consider the psychology of movement, the quiet preferences of bodies in motion, the gentle flow of humanity through built environments. All of this happens without our awareness. We simply follow the path of least resistance, guided by floors and walls, by open spaces and the positioning of these moving staircases. Our bodies know where to go without our minds needing to direct them, following patterns established through countless previous journeys. And so the escalators remain, quietly offset from each other, creating their gentle patterns of movement throughout the building. They guide us up and down, around and through, in an endless choreography we rarely notice but always follow, a silent conversation between architecture and motion. The light of the late afternoon filters through the side of a bus, catching the edges of a window. You might not notice it, but the top of the window curves inward, sloping gently downward. This subtle shape, almost unnoticed by most, has been there for years, barely drawing attention, but it's there for a reason. It's a design that seems almost ordinary at first glance, but there's something quietly purposeful in its form. The slant is there to create a better view. The architects of the city, thinking of all who would ride these buses, considered what a difference it might make to see the world from a new angle. Still, the slant is not just for beauty or comfort, it serves another, more practical purpose. You see, in some cities, buses have to navigate narrow streets, old roads that weren't built with modern vehicles in mind. To slide through these tight corners, these buses need a touch of design that gives them an extra inch of clearance. Even now, the angle of the upper window serves as a reminder of the city's past. The roads weren't always so wide, the traffic so heavy, but as cities evolved, the buses had to adapt. So the windows changed too, tilting in a subtle nod to both history and practicality. You might not notice it though. When you step on a bus, you're focused on finding a seat, watching the world blur past. You're already thinking ahead, not thinking about the curvature of the window. And yet, it's part of the system that lets you move through the city with ease, part of the design you take for granted. This small deliberate shift in the design helps prevent buses from scraping their upper edges against buildings and trees. It makes the vehicle fit, just so, into the spaces it needs to occupy. The slanted window, in its quiet simplicity, does what many design elements do: it prevents problems before they happen. But it wasn't always this way. In earlier buses, the windows were straight and the roads were just a bit wider. It wasn't until the needs of urban life expanded, until the streets became more congested, more crowded, that buses began to change their shape to fit. A shift in thinking that for most went unnoticed. You can still see it though in older buses, those still hanging on in the corners of certain cities. Their flat windows stand in stark contrast to their newer counterparts. A small detail that serves as a reminder of when the design of a bus was simpler, when the cities were not as full, not as tight. Without much thought, you might glance up at the window and wonder why it feels different, why it seems to slope so gently. It's not a feature many think about. It doesn't demand attention, but it's there. It's part of the subtle effort to make the ride smoother, to fit the needs of a growing city. As cities grow, the buses too shift. What used to be an afterthought, a minor detail, becomes a crucial part of urban design. The angle of a bus window is just one example of how the places we live, the spaces we move through, are shaped by decisions made decades ago. The windows were meant to be functional, yes, but they also mark a moment in time. They're not just about looking out, but about seeing how the city moves. The design mirrors the city's rhythm, the bending roads, the shifting skyline, the flow of traffic that we rarely pause to consider. In some cities, the slanted windows are as much a part of the landscape as the buildings themselves. You might not always see them, but they're there, hiding in plain sight. A small detail, like a whisper in the corner of a room, but essential to how things work. Even now, when you board a bus, the window is there, waiting to be noticed. You may still look out of it, but the curve is just a part of the ride. It's not something you linger on, but it's part of how the world is shaped around you, part of the invisible effort that makes movement easier. Maybe tomorrow you'll notice it, or maybe you won't. But it will still be there, this quiet design, making the ride just a little smoother. It simply waits, in the background, for you to see it, or for you to keep moving without thought. But either way, it remains unchanged. Perhaps you'll notice how the city is designed around you in ways you've never thought to consider. How the slant of a window might change your view, or how the streets were made for a different kind of movement. The bus window, like the city, is always shifting, always adapting, waiting for the next ride. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. The quiet, almost imperceptible sound of the first domino falling. It seems so simple, yet something about the arrangement of these small rectangular pieces, each decorated with a pattern of dots, holds a peculiar fascination. We all know the numbers, the black spots, and their neat alignment, but there's something else beneath the surface. A domino set, to most, is a game, a trivial pastime that shows up at family gatherings, idle evenings, or rainy afternoons. But as you lay each piece down, you realize there's something specific about how the dots are distributed, how they form pairs, how they fit. What's the exact number of dots on a complete domino set? Every domino, each one a simple rectangle, is marked with a series of spots. Some have 1 dot, others 2, and so on. But it's more than just an abstract arrangement. There's a method, a design, a rhythm behind the dots, and that rhythm begins with the set itself. A double 6 domino set, for instance, features 28 individual tiles. Now, imagine the quiet logic of it all. There are 7 numbers, from 0 to 6, and each of these numbers combines with every other number, including itself. The total number of dots on the entire set, you might guess, is 168. 168. But why? What's the purpose of this neat distribution? What does it matter? The dots are never counted aloud. Their presence, in the midst of a game or a moment of concentration, is simply understood. Yet still, the number, 168, holds a strange weight. It's a precise count, the result of an unspoken rule that governs how the pieces come together. But no one ever asks, why? The question drifts, unnoticed. It's easy to forget the origins of this simple calculation. No one thinks about why a set contains exactly 168 dots. It's just the number, and it's enough. As we play, the dots become less about the math and more about the action. Still, beneath the simplicity of each piece, the number holds its own silent significance. What happens when we begin to wonder why the number matters at all? It doesn't, of course. The dots never really mattered beyond the moment of play. And yet, there's something comforting about knowing that somewhere, someone has calculated this. The dots on each tile arranged, not by chance, but by design. Every piece a quiet testament to order. Perhaps the real mystery lies in why we feel the need to organize these pieces in the first place. Why the spots need to line up, to form patterns and combinations, even though no one has asked for it. We see the pattern, and we fall into it without a second thought. The dots, after all, aren't just dots. They're part of a rhythm, a quiet moment that passes unnoticed. And still, even in their absence, the game continues. Without thought, we place tile after tile. The dots seem irrelevant in the flow of the game, yet they bind us. Each piece is part of a greater whole, 168 dots, neatly arranged, reminding us of an order that will never fully explain itself. The more you think about it, the more absurd the whole thing seems. A set of dots, painstakingly calculated, exists for the sheer purpose of play. Yet, it's not about the play, it's about the dots. Their presence, their arrangement, the subtle design that governs everything without a single word being spoken. Even now, as the pieces are stacked away, the dots linger. They're easy to ignore when the game ends, but they remain, quietly embedded in the back of your mind. A simple number, a game, a system. But the number, 168, still holds, even as the pieces fade away, leaving behind nothing but a brief moment of stillness. Somewhere, deep down, we find comfort in knowing that the dots add up, that there is, in fact, a reason for every piece, for every spot on the domino. But that reason, it drifts away, like the game itself. It's not meant to be remembered, just felt. Tomorrow, when the game is set out again, perhaps the number won't be remembered. But the rhythm, the dots, will still quietly be there, in the background, part of a quiet pattern we don't question. It simply waits, not to be counted, but to be played. And just like that, the thought dissolves. There's something oddly peaceful about the way a pickle sinks. When dropped into a glass of tap water, it doesn't simply fall, it drifts, slowly. It's almost like it's contemplating its journey. At first, you might think it's a quick descent, but the pickle moves like it's deciding whether or not to settle at the bottom. Still, the motion isn't frantic. It's a graceful glide, almost as if the pickle knows it has nowhere to be. The briny, sour scent of the pickle fills the air, and the water around it swirls gently, like a soft, invisible hand pulling it downward. But not too quickly, not too harshly. Even now, as you stare at the pickle, you realize that time bends around its descent. The seconds stretch out just enough for you to wonder, how long does it take for a pickle to reach the bottom? How long does it take for something so small, so compact, to settle in a vast glass of water? Without much thought, you start to time it. A minute passes, then 2. The pickle has hardly moved. It hangs in the middle, suspended, almost weightless. This pause is more than just the pickle waiting for gravity. It feels as if the water itself is in no rush, as if it's allowing the pickle to exist in a gentle limbo. The pickle finally begins to dip a little deeper. The edges of its shape start to blur slightly, the crispness of its edges softening with each passing moment. The water still moves around it, but only slightly, as if it too is surrendering to the rhythm of the slow descent. There's no urgency, no hurry, only the deepening of the moment. You might notice how the water shifts in subtle waves around the pickle. It's a curious thing, the way the water reacts to this small solid object, the way it changes the stillness of the glass. The presence of the pickle seems to demand that the water moves, and yet it's the lightest touch, almost imperceptible. The pickle, now halfway to the bottom, finally begins to pick up speed. The water is cooler now, and it almost feels as if the pickle's movement through it has changed its temperature, even if just a degree. The pickle doesn't know this, of course, and perhaps neither do we. It just continues its journey, floating deeper. It's not the water's density that's holding the pickle up. It's something about the way the pickle resists the pull of gravity for just a moment longer, as if it's testing how long it can hold on to its buoyancy before it's truly bound to the bottom. The bottom itself, unreachable yet, seems both near and distant. By now, the pickle is almost there. Almost at the bottom, you've watched it long enough to realize the water's stillness is the quietest kind of movement. Nothing shifts dramatically, but everything is changing. The water is warmer now, maybe from the touch of the pickle. A simple cycle, motion, pause, motion again, filling the space without a word, and just when you think it's about to reach the end of its descent, there's a shift, a subtle movement. The pickle touches the glass, but it doesn't rest. Not yet, the last millimeter. It hovers for a second longer, as if waiting for permission to finally settle into its place, its purpose in the water. It takes a little longer than you expected, just a little more time, and then at last, it's there. The pickle rests against the bottom of the glass, still, quiet. It doesn't ask for attention, but it's never truly gone. Maybe tomorrow it'll drift upward, or maybe it'll stay. Perhaps you'll never know. Maybe the real question isn't how long it takes for a pickle to sink, but how long it takes us to notice the quiet waiting in between. It's there, just out of reach, but it doesn't push us to understand it. It simply waits. There is something curious about the buttons on certain microwave panels, a small detail, easily overlooked, but there they are, often on the cheaper models, the faux chrome buttons. They glisten under kitchen lights, catching the eye for a split second before fading back into their dull surroundings. In the stillness of an otherwise quiet kitchen, it's easy to imagine someone standing there, waiting for their food to cook. The microwave hums gently in the background, but it's the panel that draws the attention. Those buttons, what were they meant to represent? Why the shiny gleam, so unlike the other dull plastic surfaces around it? Even now, if you open an old microwave, you'll find them, these buttons that suggest something grander than they are. They shine as though they were once polished metal, a gleam meant to evoke the feel of a premium appliance. Yet you press them, and they are nothing more than soft plastic. Perhaps it was meant to convey a sense of sophistication, to make the microwave seem more expensive, even when it wasn't. This subtle trickery, not just a button, but the illusion of luxury, has existed in kitchens for decades. And yet we never question it. We simply press, and it fades from thought. Without much thought, the warm glow of the microwave light dances across the panel, and the faint shiny buttons come to life for a moment. But the effect is fleeting. After a few moments of use, they lose their luster, and the cheap plastic beneath is once again revealed, like a soft illusion. The faux chrome buttons are a reflection of an idea that many are familiar with, giving something a sense of importance, even if it isn't truly. They are the ones that suggest luxury, but in the end, only feel like an echo of something that could be more. Like a whisper of grandeur in a room full of ordinary things. Think of those moments when you stand before the microwave, waiting for the familiar beep. You're not thinking about the buttons at all. You don't notice the shine fading, or the cheapness beneath. They blend into the moment, becoming part of the quiet routine of your day. The mundane magic of modern life. Somewhere someone decided that a bit of chrome on a microwave would be enough to make it feel polished. There is an invisible logic to this. It speaks to a desire we all share to own something that feels just a little bit more special than it truly is. But how long does it last before it feels ordinary? You might have noticed that some of the most expensive models have buttons that seem to last longer, their sheen intact even after years of use. Is it because they're real chrome, or is it simply that they were designed to endure, while the faux versions quietly disappear into the background? Still, the faux chrome buttons never completely disappear. They linger in your mind's eye. The glint of them, perhaps a few weeks into ownership, still giving off that air of newness. But in a quiet, almost unnoticed way, the microwave's true form slowly begins to settle. The buttons become just another part of the appliance. You've seen this before, things that promise more than they give. The same way some people in your life show a bit of brilliance, then settle into the comfortable monotony of normalcy. But unlike people, things don't change on their own. Their shine fades, leaving only the substance beneath. Perhaps that's why we don't ask questions about the chrome buttons. They're a reminder of something small, something that holds a memory in place. Not an imperfection, but a part of the design. A glimmer that doesn't have to last, just long enough to make us feel a little bit better about the ordinary. You might press one of those buttons again tomorrow, without even thinking about it. The illusion of quality is still there, holding tight to the surface, and yet the deeper truth is always present. The microwave does its job regardless of what it's dressed in. It simply waits. There's something almost ritualistic about it, the slow, deliberate twist of the paint can lid, its resistance, the slight grating of metal on metal. It's a motion done so often that it's become automatic, like the flip of a coin or the click of a pen. But in the silence of that struggle, there's something else. A reason. The lid seems to know it's not going back. It fights against the soft pressure, refusing to snap back into place like it once did. You may think it's simply a flaw, an oversight in design. But in truth, it's more deliberate than that. The reason is almost invisible, hidden beneath the surface. The lid has a secret, a small subtle ridge that holds it firmly against the can. When you press it back down, the shape of the lid warps slightly, stretching over time until the edges can't quite line up again. It's this gentle deformation, this barely perceptible warping, that keeps the lid from sealing perfectly. But it's not a complete failure. No, it's just a reminder that things once opened are never quite the same. There's something oddly comforting in this imperfection, this small daily reminder that the world is a little less predictable than it seems. Even now, if you twist the lid just right, you might hear it click, but the seal will never be as tight as when it was new. It's as though the lid knows it's served its purpose, and that no matter how much you want it to return, there's a small piece of time locked in that small movement. You might notice it most when you're trying to close the can again. The lid won't sit quite right, leaving a small gap at the edge. It's barely noticeable, but it's there. And for all the effort to make things return to their original state, the result is something different altogether. A paint can lid isn't just a cap, it's a reminder that nothing stays perfectly closed forever. Perhaps it's the design itself, the way it's made to distort, that lets you know something has changed. The materials, the forces, they've all worked together to ensure the seal is never quite the same. It's as if the lid was designed for imperfection, but this imperfection isn't a failure of design. It's a nod to the fragility of time. Each time you twist the lid, you feel that resistance, that slight friction, and perhaps, without realizing it, you're feeling something deeper, a pull toward the delicate, the fleeting. Even in its resistance, there's beauty. The lid is still functional, still keeps the paint inside, but it's no longer perfect. This small, almost unnoticed detail speaks to a truth we often overlook. We're all, in some way, a little less whole than we were before. The more you try to reseal it, the more it resists. Maybe it's a test of patience, of understanding that things change, even the simplest things. A paint can lid is just one example of how, even in the most mundane moments, we're reminded that perfection is something we can never quite grasp. And yet the lid still holds the paint inside. It still does its job. Just as things in life still go on, even when they aren't the way they used to be. It doesn't ask for attention, but it quietly waits, forever a little out of place, forever holding on in its imperfect way. Maybe, next time you try to reseal a paint can, you'll feel it, a subtle connection to the imperfection, the change that's come, and the way things settle into new forms, even when we wish they would stay the same. The lid, a silent companion in a task so familiar, still resists, still holds on. Perhaps, next time, you'll notice it even more, that subtle difference that reminds you nothing is truly ever the same again. But that's okay, it doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. It's quiet, that moment, just before the curve of the peel begins to change. The green skin of the banana starts to soften just slightly. You could almost miss it, but then without much thought, it begins to look a little different. Like the light, changing ever so gently, it no longer feels quite right. The smooth, slightly unblemished yellow shifts into something else. A pale, almost translucent shade, one that doesn't belong. This is the moment when a banana, so carefully cultivated, so mindfully harvested, begins to take on a life of its own. It is the precise angle of ripeness that begins to mark its journey out of sight. In places where they grow, bananas live in clusters, hanging from long stems like they are waiting for something. And at first, they wait for their moment. The time when the green hue turns into yellow, and they seem to echo the promise of sweetness. But somewhere in between, the conditions of waiting change. Bananas are one of the few fruits that don't ripen on the tree. They have to be picked before they reach that point. They sit in a state of limbo, neither here nor there. Still green, but waiting until they are put into rooms where gas fills the air. Ethylene gas. A simple thing, but it makes the magic happen. It calls forth the ripening. Still, the magic has limits. There's a line that, once crossed, makes the fruit no longer exportable. The exact moment when the banana is too ripe to make the journey across oceans. Once the peel turns into a deeper yellow, with faint brown freckles starting to appear, there's little that can be done. It's a point of no return. The problem is subtle, almost like a secret. It's a question of timing. How long a banana stays in the holding rooms, bathed in that ethereal gas, and how long it's left to sit in storage after. That delicate balance that ensures it's still firm enough for a long journey, but ripe enough for the buyer to feel it's worth their while. Not too firm, but not too soft either. Even now, bananas travel far, from the tropical climates where they are grown, to the far reaches of supermarkets in distant cities, and it's all a race against time. The clock ticks louder as the banana ripens, and what seemed like the perfect hue can quickly slip into something more unmanageable. That deep yellow, with those spots, is a fleeting thing. You might not think about it, but in warehouses around the world, bananas are being carefully rotated, checked, inspected. Each one judged by a standard, one that's quietly hidden from sight. There's an understanding between the banana and the handlers. If the peel's smooth, it's perfect. If it starts to show imperfections, then the race has begun. The ripening process is both predictable and unpredictable. A banana left just a little too long will ripen past the threshold of exportability. It's too delicate to last. The air pressure of a plane, the cold storage, and the movement through various temperature zones all pull at the fruit in unexpected ways. What was ripe for export can now be too far gone. Somewhere in the logistics chain, the banana reaches the point where it can't make it. The weight of its ripeness, just too much, too soft. The banana begins to wrinkle, like an old photograph fading at the edges. It begins to become something different, something not meant for this journey. Its time has passed, without much thought. It's no longer a question of speed or efficiency. It's a simple fact. If the banana is too ripe, there is nothing that can be done. The trade of fruit, which once seemed like a simple exchange, becomes an intricate dance of timing, weather, transport, and decay. Every stage must align, and when it doesn't, the fruit is left behind. Some bananas, after reaching this point, are sent to different markets. They find homes where they can be turned into something else: smoothies, jams, or baked goods. The bananas once on the edge of perfection find a new life in other forms. They are not lost entirely, but the long journey has closed for them. And yet, in other places, the bananas that make it to their destination are immediately opened, checked for ripeness. There's a sense of satisfaction when the yellow peel meets the eye and feels just soft enough, but not too soft. The consumer might not know how long it's been in transit or how close it came to never making it at all. Still, the process continues. The bananas come and they go, their journey a secret kept by the small spaces between ripeness and ruin. The world has perfected the timing, each banana an artifact of careful attention and fleeting moments. The perfection of the fruit is held in balance until it's not. And when it is not, it's simply too late. The truth of a banana's journey lies in the space between the too ripe and the just right. It's an invisible line, unnoticed by most, but one that dictates its fate. And when the moment passes, the fruit simply waits. Not gone, but no longer the same. Maybe you'll notice it next time, how each banana is a story of timing, or maybe you won't. Either way, it doesn't matter, it simply waits.